gunning for me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my right?
Hello, wackos. Welcome to a special Knicks in the Finals early edition of Without a Country. I'm Corinne Fisher. If you're joining us for the first time, I am a stand-up comedian, a podcaster, a political enthusiast, and also a former New York City mayoral candidate 2025. I'm here to present the news to you in the most unbiased way possible. We explore news topics of the week from the perspective of the right and the left, and we try to find some truth in the middle. We talk a lot about critical thinking, and I am on the left. That's how I vote politically, but I still look at every issue independently and don't just go along with whatever my party says I should. That's a little bit about me. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show. Los Angeles, California. You done fucked up, it looks like. Oh my God. It's so funny because, I'm very upset, about what's going on with the Los Angeles mayoral primary results as they come in. It's about 60% of the votes are in. I know there's a lot of talk about how, apparently a lot of more Democrats voted by mail than Republicans. So, people are hoping that Nithya Raman gets more or Karen Bass gets more votes when those mail-in votes are counted, but it's not looking good at no part in the process. And I've been tracking this since since the first polls started closing yesterday. It is now 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, the day after the election. And at no point has Nithya Raman been in first or second place in this race. I think it was clear that Karen Bass was going to come in first as the incumbent. But, this is, it's just very frustrating because so many people that I was talking to were kind of still had this like old school Democratic mentality of like, oh no, this is a place that's blue and they always vote blue and don't got to do anything else. We don't live in that world anymore. I do not know how to reiterate this to anyone anymore. And if you listen to this show regularly, that I'm not someone who fear mongers. I hate fear mongering. I think it takes up a lot of emotional energy that we need to do other things and to actually achieve things and, pass legislation and get things done in this world. That being said, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was a couple months ago, Mike, that I came onto this show one day and I said, I know everyone's kind of joking around about Spencer Pratt running for mayor, but we need to take this really fucking seriously. And that was before he was making, long before Donald Trump said anything about him or, Joe Rogan's, posing for pictures with him. I said on this show, this is exactly Donald Trump again on a mayoral level. We need to take this seriously. Cut to Nithya Raman, in the park after she fucking fucked up the debate big time, in the breeze, talking to kids and mid-level comedians on a podcast. Like, I just, again, it's so hard for me to talk about this race because there is not a good person to tell. There's no good option. I think they're all kind of bad options. And so it is this circumstance where we're voting for the lesser of three evils. I don't think Nithya Raman is evil. I just don't think I think her campaign, how it was executed, I think it was lazy. I've been talking, I can be a little bit more harsh now that I'm not going to, by saying that, affect voting for her, because again, I still would have cast my vote for her. I don't think she would have been lazy in office. And I think the way that one governs, governing and campaigning are two completely different things, which is obnoxious. I think I talked about this while I was running for mayor. I think I would be an amazing elected official. Campaigning, however, took a lot out of me. Like, I think I really did an amazing job considering who I am. But there is this like showmanship we have come to expect in campaigning that the American people really are receptive to, that made me want to throw up, that I am not good at this, a razzle dazzle. One watch viewer is saying Pratt gave a hell of an interview the other night. What interview are you referencing? I mean, he did, and that's what I have to say about Spencer Pratt. I don't like Spencer Pratt. I don't trust Spencer Pratt. I don't think that he is running to be a representative of the people. As you know, I think one bad thing happened to him, and now he's on a retaliation tour. What does that sound? Who does that sound like? It sounds exactly like Donald Trump. And again, I think a lot of younger politicians or political wannabes, myself included, have really taken some notes from Donald Trump. And you can use those notes for good, as I was hoping to do, but you can also use those notes for evil. And I think that's what Spencer Pratt is trying to do. And I am going to give it to Spencer Pratt. I don't agree with his policies. I hate the way he talks about his constituents. I hate the way that he talks about the unhoused people in Los Angeles. It's a huge problem. The drug use and homelessness in Los Angeles is a huge problem. But the way that he talks about these people as if they are not human beings, just go to his Instagram page. The way he talks to people, and even the way he talks to constituents who are not homeless and are not drug addicts, in quotes, it's very demeaning. It's very like, he put something on his Instagram story that was like, if you don't vote, you have no fucking right to complain about everything. And like, while I kind of agree with that sentiment as a constituent, that is not how you speak to people when you are trying to earn being the key word, earn their vote. And so while I hate kind of everything about Spencer Pratt, I do have to give it to him. The reason he's doing so well, I mean, number one, the reason he's doing so well is because he had a previous fame and a huge amount of money, because he himself comes from a wealthy family, and he knows celebrities and tons of, he is connected to so much wealth in Los Angeles. So those are, that's part of the reason that he's doing so well. I mean, I was reading stats, and basically like in one financial fundraising period, he was able to raise as much as Karen Bass had raised over the course of 2 years. That's how much money. Oh, okay. With Tom Lamas, or Yamas, is it, on NBC? I did not watch that interview, but I watched, the debates, and I've watched a lot of the stuff that he's put out there. And while I find him to be obnoxious, he does have that like passion. His podcast with Bill Maher was a good watch as well. They're saying you'd have to pay me $15,000 to watch anything with Bill Maher after having to be a guest on his club touch your foot in your basement, or whatever the fuck Christine and I appeared on. What a nightmare of a loser that guy is. Anyway, again, I'm talking a lot of stuff that you guys didn't see. I personally spent many hours with Bill Maher in 2022, and I'm kind of good on him for the rest of my life. And I didn't always feel that way about him. I loved Religulous, but he is, I don't think he's aged well. All right. So back to, but Spencer Pratt is, he ran like kind of a hell of a campaign. He worked everything, like he worked all the angles. And again, in my tumultuous relationship with political journalists, this is another, instance where they had so much control over who was getting coverage. And of course, like, the interesting, I'm part of this. The interesting clickbaity topic that we wanted to talk about is Spencer Pratt for mayor. Like, it almost became like Spencer Pratt's mayoral race. Spencer Pratt is running for mayor, and Karen Bass is kind of like, no one's talking about her because she's like, is just kind of unexciting and fucked up the LA, the Palisades and the fire and the wildfires so much. And then Nithya Raman, like, again, people kept trying to push this issue, or push this narrative rather, that she was Los Angeles's Zoran Mamdani. And babes, she wasn't even close. I know a lot of you weren't in New York City where Zoran Mamdani was running. Obviously, I had a front row seat to that campaign. Zoran Mamdani's campaign is unlike anything I've ever seen before. Okay. And it's like got me sitting here in New York kind of pissed, because I was like, oh God, of course I run, a good solid campaign for a grassroots campaign, the one that I felt very proud of in New York City. And had I run, honestly, the same campaign in Los Angeles, I would have gotten so much more visibility. Let me at that city. I was like, what is going on? So, and it's so hard now, because it's like, how do you, I'm going to be in LA before the general election. And like, what do? I was like, do I go out and canvass for Karen Bass? Like, how can I canvass for someone who is like, like, I can canvass against Spencer Pratt, but it's very, very difficult when the other options on the table are meh. And that is the same problem the Democratic Party keeps fucking facing. It goes back to exactly why I fucking ran in the first place, which is, yes, you need to have good policies, and Nithya Raman has good policies, but it is a two-tier thing, especially when it comes to campaigning. You don't need to be overly sparkly when you finally get the role, although I do think, especially as a mayor, someone who has to answer to a lot of higher powers in the caste system of government, you need to, during the campaign process, the candidate has to have star power. That is an argument that I made in many of my endorsement meetings. And had I not been knocked off the ballot, would have gotten me an endorsement, at least I know, with one large group here in New York City. It was like, I was also just like overly qualified for it. It was a group that does a lot of women's reproductive legislation and stuff like that. I mean, I fucking nailed that interview. But in it, they asked me hard questions. They were like, what the hell? Why the fuck should we trust you to be mayor? And I didn't beat around the bush. I said, none of these candidates, and I was only going against female candidates at that time. And I said, these candidates don't have star power. I said, I have star power. And if you want to get legislation passed, if you want to motivate the people, you need to do that. And for all the shit that I have to say, and all the negative things that I have to say about Spencer Pratt, the guy has star power. He does. And even if it's villain star power, like, you can use villain star power is still star power. We see it work all the time, in Disney movies. We see those are, animated characters, but we see it in WWE wrestling. The villains are a lot of times the people who are more interesting and more engaging. And I think also because there's such like an autobiographical storyline to why he's running, Spencer Pratt, or why he tells you he's running. And that is, number one, Americans are a sucker for a story like that. Something bad happened to me. Now I'm dedicating my life to make sure this doesn't happen to other people. That last part of the sentence is the part that I don't necessarily trust. After Spencer Pratt gets what Spencer Pratt wants, what will he really be doing for constituents? Or is this really just a very creative way to reignite a career of someone that we really weren't talking about much anymore? And that's my theory. Oh gosh, I mean, yeah, I just don't even. Again, I'm just so annoyed at all the people who are like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It's not going to be fine. I knew it wasn't. Every week I was like, I know it's not fine, because Nithya Raman's campaign is a fucking mess. It's a fucking mess. It was a fucking mess. God, I mean, it kind of almost inspired me. I was like, I found campaigning not very palatable in a lot of ways, even though I made myself do it and sold it, just because, you kind of are having to be like, you're a bit of a punching bag, because you have to be for your constituents, because unless you're going to go the Anthony Weiner approach. And I don't mean sexting a child when I say that. I mean, of really like cursing back at people in New York when they curse at you. I'm not going to do that because I want to have empathy for my constituents. And I do have empathy. I would have empathy if I was elected. I have empathy for my fellow people of New York, even though they are not my constituents. We are all constituents together. But Anthony Weiner, when people would attack him verbally when he was in like a deli or a bodega in New York, he would just, shoot the shit right back at him. But it was a different time, when people weren't hurting as badly as they're hurting now. So that approach, I just don't think works. So, you're a bit of a punching bag when you're running for office. And I think you kind of have to be, to a certain extent, while still maintaining dignity and respect for yourself in a public setting. And then, additionally, you kind of got to morph into a lot of different, you have a lot of people behind the scenes telling you where to be, what to do, and I'm like, that's like, it's not kind of my speed, but I was like, maybe the role that I really could nail is campaign manager. I'm just thinking this through, but I'm like, it was just so frustrating. It's so frustrating to watch someone like Nithya Raman, who gets truly the opportunity of a lifetime, an opportunity I would have sunk my teeth into to be one of the top contenders for mayor. And I really just think she absolutely fucking phoned it in. And I have no patience for that. Again, by far the best policies, by far, like the best background. This is a woman who has really devoted her life to urban planning, to, stopping homelessness, all this stuff. Like, she has the resume, but that is only part of it. She failed the job interview, quite frankly. I'm so frustrated. With her. I'm personally angry with her right now. There's no reason that should have happened. Especially when you have such a weak incumbent. It was very similar to the template that we were working with here in New York, when you have a fucking weak incumbent who can be beaten. Statistically, it's not common for the incumbent to be beaten. This was an Eric Adams situation, in some ways worse, right? Because there wasn't this like one big event that Eric Adams mishandled. He kind of just was like unserious throughout his whole 4 years, right? But nothing like was completely out of control. In fact, like the crime rate had actually gone down. Like, things had gotten better in some ways. Well, but he just was very unserious, and then obviously started like colluding with like Trump and Republicans and all that kind of shit. Whereas, Karen Bass, we're dealing with this one major mishandling that cost people their lives and their homes. And, and to still be getting whatever it is she's at now, 34% of the vote or whatever. It's a real, the numbers that we see coming in is a real testament to how much work Spencer Pratt put in. Also money, also celebrity friends, also knowing the press. And then number two, just how fucking much Nithya Raman fumbled that ball. Fumbled the ball. Oh my God. All right. And if you guys are still confused, it's a jungle primary. I still see a lot of confusion. At Los Angeles, you have a jungle primary. A jungle primary means it's not party specific. It means every person, no matter what line they're running on, primaries together. And then if someone yesterday had gotten, and I mean, I guess there's still time because votes are coming in, but I don't think it's even like numerically possible at this point. If someone had gotten over 50% of the vote yesterday, that person would have immediately become mayor, and well, not immediately, like sitting in it, but won, and there would be no general election in November. But that hasn't happened since, I believe, 1933 is the last year that happened. So now what is happening is the two top contenders, and it looks like it's going to be Karen Bass and Spencer Pratt. They are then going to go in a face-off. And so we'll be hearing a lot more about Spencer Pratt. And now that he has a real tangible chance at winning, we're going to be hearing a lot more about Spencer Pratt. And also, just like if we're going with logistics, Spencer Pratt's a lot younger than Karen Bass. He hasn't been weighed down by politics. He's not tired from having been mayor for, almost 4 years. He's going to have the energy. You know, he has that Hollywood money to go get IV drips when he's not feeling well. And he has just a circle of, I mean, Paris Hilton endorsed him, for fuck's sake. It made me want to bring back my fucking air fryer. How Paris? That's not sliving at all. Okay. I almost couldn't sleep last night because of this. Again, not surprised. I feel like a parent, not surprised, just disappointed. Anyway, I'll keep it on. And also just looking at, and I am judging you based on this, looking at my friends and fellow comedians who have been liking Spencer Pratt's posts. Ugh, just so you guys know. A reminder, that shit is public. Ugh. Oh, and this is another thing. I discussed this on Guys We Fucked briefly, but I think first of all, it was so obvious that Spencer Pratt had steam because everyone, instead of making straight up pro Nithya Raman videos, they were making these weird mashups of pro Nithya Raman, but also anti Spencer Pratt, which I think it is this bubbling up of hysteria that we tend to do on the left. And this is why I actually didn't make a anti Spencer Pratt video, really, for Maine at least. Even though I've talked about it at length on this show, is because that hysteria fuels the right. Again, we got to learn. They love when we're in hysterics, and it really gives more press to whoever we're being hysterical about. So that I thought was a bad approach. We should have been doing, and shout out to podcasts like Esther Pavitsky and Kalila on Trash Tuesday. They did a really nice long form sit down interview with Nithya Raman that I thought stuff like that was really helpful, where they really targeted issues. They humanized her. I thought that was really good. But a lot of people were just making these straight to camera videos where they were kind of just saying I'm voting for Nithya Raman, and if you vote for Spencer Pratt, you're a fucking idiot. That's not helpful. That's exactly this virtue signaling, I'm better and smarter than you mentality that has gotten us to where we are now. Give me a fucking video showing all the incredible work, and we went over it on this show, the incredible work that Nithya Raman has put in, why she is in fact quite qualified for to be the mayor of Los Angeles and to combat the specific issues that need combating in Los Angeles. She really is. Give me informational videos about that. Tell me historically, tell me the stats, tell me this kind of stuff. And if we need, and also whoever's fucking managing her campaign, did you not notice she came off as completely lazy and unbothered in every video? There needs to be urgency. Can you imagine if someone, it was the most, she's not Gen Z, but it was giving Gen Z. If you want to be mayor, you sit up straight. This is her in every podcast. Yeah, I want to be mayor. I just think you sit up straight. You fucking sell yourself. Again, Spencer Pratt, psycho, but he was in the camera. He said, he's making videos. He's like, this is happening. This is happening. You don't deserve this. I'm going to get this to you. We need to be, and this is not I don't think this is misogynistic at all, because lazy is actually not something that women are accused of a lot. So it's very interesting. Pratt taps into the issues that Raman never could. First of all, you're spelling Raman's name last name wrong. I'm what are you talking about? What are you talking about? He taps into issues that what are the issues that Spencer Pratt is tapping into that Nithya Raman never could? Being a multi-millionaire reality TV star. What are you talking about? Anyway, Mike, stop sharing things from him. That guy's just trolling me at this point and making no good points in spelling errors, which are annoying me. So, trying to cause leftist hysteria when I'm actually making good points. And again, I have a real fucking foundation to talk about this. And I know, I hinted at a lot of this without really going into Nithya Raman because previously, because again, policies are good. And I didn't want to take away votes for her that would be completely counterintuitive and counterproductive. It would have been so stupid of me. But now that she's fucking, And if, a miracle happens and she somehow gets the votes to go in a runoff with Karen Bass with these last, 40% of the votes, I hope someone who's working for her team sees this. Okay. I'll fucking fly out to LA and help you, because whoever's managing your campaign is doing a fucking terrible job. I'm sorry. You're doing a bad job. You need to be sitting her down and being like, this, you need to be speaking with urgency. Your constituents in Los Angeles feel urgency about their lives. You, as the want to be elected official, need to be acting with urgency. It almost felt like she didn't even want the job, Zoran Mamdani, we could say whatever we want about him. He was showing up everywhere. He was putting in the hours. I'm also curious, if you live in Los Angeles, withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com, or if you're watching live, did Nithya Raman or someone from her team knock on your door if you live in Los Angeles? And remember, Los Angeles, very small, remember, okay? And it's not West Hollywood. It's not Beverly Hills. Los Angeles is Los Angeles. So if you live in Los Angeles proper, did someone from Nithya Raman's team or Nithya Raman herself at any point knock your door, right? Because I will say that's where, if you're running a campaign, for a municipal spot, door knocking most effective. That's, in my opinion, where 80% of your campaign budget should be going to field. So that's people out on the streets engaging with the people who are voting for you. Zoran Mamdani's team, I got 3, he never came to my door personally, but I got 3 door knocks from people on his team. And if I'm not like missing anything, usually they left something in my door if I wasn't there. I believe I answered once, if not twice, because I was home. And then one time I could tell that they had tried to door knock me because there was a hanger on my door. That's impressive. Again, maybe even a misuse of money if you're door knocking 3 times. But it's and no other candidates door knocked for me. And again, that's door knocking is expensive. You got to pay people to do that. You can also have if you have just like really, volunteers who really, get into you, which, Zoran Mamdani definitely had a lot of people working for free for him too, which is obviously amazing. But that's door knocking is where it's at. So this article that I pulled to talk about this, because my enemy of the state right now is the people of Los Angeles. And I don't know. I'm like, it's kind of like a joke that I said that, because I don't even really feel like you are. Like, I understand you didn't have like an amazing option. And that's fucked up. And that goes back into my thoughts that, so many times we don't even have one good option to vote for. And we're like abused. We're like victims of abuse at this point as constituents. We should not only have one really good option for each party that we're excited about, we should get used to and have it become the norm that we have, for primaries at least, multiple good options to choose from. And I had previously said Ray Huang was a good option, but then she pulled a fucking I forgot the one who I was running against. I forgot her name because I banned it from my system. But what was her name? The Jessica running mayor of New York.
Was it Ramos?
Yeah, I was like, I can't even remember. I was like the Latino woman. Yeah. So Jessica Ramos. So Ray Huang, and I have to look into this a little bit more. I didn't have time because there was so much to go to, but I believe she pulled Ray Huang pulled a Jessica Ramos. So as soon as Jessica Ramos was pretty clear that she wasn't going to win, she went and fucking endorsed Cuomo, which was like, what? And Ray Huang, I think she deleted it, but it wasn't a mistake because it appeared in both her Instagram stories and another place. And it had like it wasn't just like a retweet or a repost. There was a thing from her on it. She reposted something from Spencer Pratt, I guess, when it was clear that she wasn't going to win. I mean, obviously that's like a self-serving tactic for, her seeing that Spencer Pratt was probably, going to be one of the people in the face-off, and she wanted to perhaps get some sort of a role in his cabinet. And so she endorsed him. And I go, well, immediately can't trust Ray Huang, which is really fucked up and really disheartening. But I had a pin in possible red flags to her when she came from a religious background. So, probably should have trusted that. Like, she was a pastor, and I was like, don't love that. Although on the flip side, there have been candidates who come from a religious background who are great, meaning like, they are like a pastor or a reverend. And, you know, that is someone who probably has star power. That is someone who can speak to an audience. That is someone who knows how to engage people. So it's not all bad. I just there's a lot of distrust I have around that, obviously, because of how everyone has acted. Oh, also, if anyone's wondering why I'm wearing this, I'm wearing my Knicks colors, orange and blue. And I know you're like, why a Taylor Swift shirt? First of all, most of my Knicks tops are sweatshirts, and it's like 80 degrees in New York today. And I don't like the air on while I'm doing the show because it's too hot. So I couldn't wear that. But I was like, Taylor Swift, I associate with the Knicks winning because last time she was at a game, the Knicks won, even though she wasn't there to root for them. So that is how I decided on this outfit for today, obviously. So this article is from Politico. I thought this was really interesting. It was published yesterday, June 2nd, and it's by Alexander Burns. And it says the biggest threat to J.D. Vance is Spencer Pratt. Very interesting. Washington loves Rubio. A brash bully from outside conventional politics is the bigger potential challenge. And this article to me is tapping into, this pattern that we keep repeating. Political outsiders, and Zohran Mamdani included, like he was in politics, but barely. He had his toe in politics and certainly was being mocked. And no one believed in the beginning, besides him and his followers, that he could become mayor of New York. And I'm talking about like pretty soon to when he won. I also think this campaign also reinforced the theory that I have that about 6 months is exactly how long you want to run for an office like mayor. Any longer, and I think people will get sick of you and it will kind of burn out. Technically, Zohran launched his campaign in like late October, I think it was, of 2024 for the 2025 year. Obviously, he had a longer way to go than Spencer Pratt. Spencer Pratt, I believe, announced his campaign on January 7th of this year to take you to the June primaries. But some people campaign for way too long. And as one of the first things an advisor said to me when I got into the race, as I've shared with you before, is the number one thing you have to remember when you're running for office is that people are fickle. And I think 6 months gives it enough time to really create stir and energy around your campaign without tiring people of you. And of course, if you're a complete unknown, you're going to need a little bit more time than that. It depends what kind of reach you have. But I just wanted to share that with you because, again, I'm still really encouraging you guys to run for office. So I'm really trying to share everything that I learned with you guys. This is not like an opportunity just to talk about myself long form. I have plenty of other ways that I could do that if I wanted to do that. But I really just want to impart this information because I really want you guys to think about running for office. And this is going to become more and more common. And we don't want these kind of people running for office. Although I do believe anyone. Oh, and the second thing that a lot of leftist, Los Angeles people were points that they were making that I think were completely unhelpful in their videos was like, he has no political experience. He shouldn't run for mayor. Number one, obviously, I don't agree with that. I'm walking proof that I don't agree with that. I think anyone who's a constituent has absolutely every right to represent the people in their community and should. I want everyone from all different walks of life. I want sex workers. I want farmers. I want people who make, minimum wage. I want people who have built companies. I want a real mix of people in politics. And I don't feel like, political background to me means nothing. Politics is a bunch of smoke and mirrors. I barely consider it a real fucking industry. Politics is just knowing what is good for the people and fighting to get them those things. It's not like experience in politics. What is that? Experience bullshitting? Experience showboating? It's not a thing. So stop saying that. It's so fucking unhelpful. Every time someone says it, my ears bleed. Okay. So getting into this article, again, it's from Politico. There are only 3 real threats that could complicate Vice President J.D. Vance's path to the Republican nomination in 2028. One, would be a spectacular betrayal by President Donald Trump, which, yeah, 100% and very likely. America's gossip in chief has played enough 2028 parlor games with friends and aides to ensure a stream of stories about Trump, considering alternatives to Vance, chiefly Secretary of State Marco Rubio. There is a long way between Trump's kibitzing and actually intervening to wipe out his loyal deputy. The second would be a grisly scandal that implicates Vance, specifically with smoking gun evidence. It would have to be indefensible, even for the Trump administration. Vance has given us no reason to expect that kind of demise. Yeah, I kind of feel like that would have come to light already. The third threat to Vance is Spencer Pratt. The reality soap performer has emerged as a disruptive force in the race for mayor of Los Angeles, churning up the city's inert politics with performance artistry, authentic grievance, and high-tech vapor. Pratt, 42, has delivered a slashing message about Democratic mismanagement of homelessness and crime, an evocative, if embellished, personal story about losing his home in the Palisades wildfire. Boosted by campy AI videos and slobbering TMZ coverage, he has drawn close to Mayor Karen Bass in polls of the first round of voting. A runoff in the liberal city would be much harder. While Pratt's campaign, and again, I know Los Angeles is a liberal city, but it's also the city of entertainment. And I think this race is really reflective of that. I saw someone just saying that they want to run for office, but that politics is so messy. Babe, life is messy. Get in the mess. Get some dirt on your face. Someone else says Pratt is just a grifter, doesn't even live in Los Angeles. He doesn't even understand that Los Angeles is ran by the council, not the mayor. I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm sure he knows very little bit about the structure of Los Angeles. And again, I've read what I can, but I can't completely compare it to New York City, because the mayor of New York City actually has a lot more power than the mayor of Los Angeles. California State, I believe, has a lot more oversight over the mayor on certain issues, from what I've read. And yes, I know Nithya has been a council member for years. Yeah. And again, and that's why it's so easy, because, people are being like, okay, you had an ample opportunity to do your thing and you didn't do it. But she was only one council member. Again, I can't defend her that much. Because and you know, if there's one thing that's going to tick me off, it's laziness. I have no tolerance for it. All right. So while Pratt's campaign has attracted national attention, it is unlikely a Trump-aligned Republican could win over a city where Democrats outnumber Republicans by nearly 4-1. Yeah, but like publicly, these people are Democrats. On paper, they are. But what kind of Democrats, I would ask? What does Democrat even mean anymore? And also, people felt very comfortable, I think, even if they were registered Democrats, voting for Spencer Pratt because of this jungle primary structure, and because Spencer Pratt, even though, if you didn't know, is a registered Republican, that is not hidden information, he's running as an independent, and he's doing that for one reason and one reason only, not because he actually believes he's an independent. In his heart, he's of course a fucking Republican. He is running as an independent because he wants to be able to get Democrats to vote for him. And it's working. It's working. When you're running as an independent, you're saying, I'm the outsider. I'm the outsider. Take me, take this opportunity to fight with me. Pratt has managed all this without any training to lead an important city. Unlike, you don't need training. I can't reiterate this enough. I really don't think you need training to be mayor. I just really think we're making up shit here. You have a huge staff of people. The training you need is being a person in the place that you are going to be mayor of. Stop saying this. Unlike any other entertainer politicians like California's own Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ronald Reagan, Pratt did not build a long record of activism or partisan advocacy before running for office. He exploded into the Los Angeles election from the margins of public life, a minor celebrity who became an avatar of dissatisfaction with Bass. I would push back on minor celebrity too. He was one of the first reality TV stars. I think we turn our nose up at that now because reality TV stars are a dime a dozen. But even now, let me tell you, it frustrates me when I'm booking GWF. There's no one who you guys want on more than the person who's on this season of Love Island. Reality stars are stars. in 2026. They just are. And they certainly were when the Hills in Laguna Beach was out. I remember it very well. The comparisons to Trump are inevitable and inadequate. Trump was one of the most recognizable people alive before he ran for president, a self-branded icon of American wealth and tabloid notoriety, a dabbler in local and presidential politics for decades before the birther crusade against Barack Obama that vaulted Trump toward the 2016 campaign. Who was Spencer Pratt until he became a major candidate for high office? And that is what Vance should worry about. Not Pratt himself, but the success of a screwball candidacy made from little besides artifice and anger. The barriers to entering politics have fallen so low that they've fallen so low because the people who apparently had the fucking pedigree to run for office have failed us for decades and decades, Politico. And you personally have failed me too, so fuck all y'all. I'm getting very cash me outside. Sorry. The New Jersey's coming out hard. That it no longer requires Trump-sized talent to crash a big campaign. Thousands of Americans have bigger public platforms than Pratt did at the start of his race. All of them have access to the same AI hype tools his campaign uses. And that is the AI usage actually for a man who a big part of his campaign is bringing back productions to Los Angeles, which it is. That is a real place to push back on Spencer Pratt's campaign because he's saying he's going to bring more jobs in the entertainment business to LA while actively using AI to create materials for his campaign, art materials for his campaign. That right there shows you it's just a little taste of the hypocrite you are going to get as mayor of Los Angeles if he wins. I mean, and that's an AI. I know like a lot of super left people are anti-AI, but I feel like AI is a nonpartisan issue. You know, it's certainly going to affect the health and livelihood of everyone. Arguably, probably even a lot more people who are conservatives. I think the types of jobs it's going to take actually is definitely going to be a lot of jobs that people who tend to vote conservative have. All right. Let's see. So if there is going to be a challenge to an orderly handover of Republican leadership in 2028, it is far less likely to come from one of the usual suspects, Rubio, Ted Cruz, Glenn Youngkin, and so on, than from a Pratt-like fireball aimed at Washington. And this is why I'm sharing this article, because I agree with this angle. The national political environment is awfully inviting for such a candidate. Without a dramatic change in the country's trajectory, the next presidential campaign will start next winter with the electorate in a foul mood, contemptuous of both parties and rightly upset about the federal government's failure to address the national cost of living crisis. The Trump White House, like the Biden administration before it, has been a passive and ineffectual on affordability issues, as most California Democrats have been on housing and crime. An economy-focused outsider on the right, railing about how damn expensive everything is, unburdened by the need to defend Trump's trade wars and his role in spiking energy prices, might make things uncomfortable for any 2028 contender from inside the current administration. The conservative political ecosystem works in many ways to the advantage of a candidate like this one. The Trump-era GOP is a relatively simple machine, not a jumbled-up coalition like the Democrats, who are subdivided to their detriment into countless ideological and generational and racial factions, which we discussed a lot about last week, but a movement of people with largely overlapping values and impulses and media consumption habits. And if the Democrats can't fucking get a wake-up call from the fact that a multi-millionaire reality TV star, and this has happened multiple times now, is more relatable than the representatives from the Democratic Party, there is no hope for you. Let me inside, guys. Let me inside. What? Someone fucking hire me. I'm giving out gold here. Again, this is, we all know this. We all know this. Why can't it be executed? Trump has made it so, first by purging dissenting voices and then by failing to lock in support from working class racial minorities who voted for him in 2024. He has built a party optimized for its attraction to a certain kind of neon lit anti-politician. Is Vance that man for 2028? No, and also Vance looks kind of like a little bitch with the way he acts in relation to Trump. No one likes a bitch. Like not my kind of bitch, like a male bitch, close enough, probably. The vice president is a canny operative who has navigated the GOP's cultural and political currents with skill. Someone who wrote a mega bestseller into the Senate and now maintains a Twitter tail gunner persona in the country's second highest office, won't be easily surprised by the appetites of the Republican base. Still, the risks to him are real if the cost of living keeps spiraling and the Trump White House keeps skidding. And there is only so much Vance can do if voters are less drawn to hillbilly elegy than to the hills. I really like that. I like things that are warnings without being like completely fear mongering. And I think that article did that and really pointed to our lack of pattern recognition here on the left is blowing my fucking mind. All right. Oh, and I know, real quick, let's thank the Patreons and then we'll get into the quick segment about the Knicks that you suggested, Michael. I'm going to take this opportunity to thank all our Patreon subscribers. This show, obviously completely independent. We're not on a network. And so you guys are really helping to finance making this show every single week. And I appreciate it so much. I appreciate your contributions. All hail to our incredible dictator, Christopher Fungi. And we have a bunch of new subscribers this week. Thank you so much. I was so excited when I opened my email inbox. I want to say hello and welcome to all of our OG capitalist pigs and then our new capitalist pigs, Carol, Luca Balboni, and EJZ. Thank you so much. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being a part of it. And welcome to all my OG cuties. And then our newest cutie, Casey Laboda. Thank you for being here. If you are interested in helping to make this show come to life every week, your money is, paying for news subscriptions. It's paying for, and it's paying this, the, I don't want to say salaries, or not salaries, but you're paying the invoices of everyone who is amazing and works on this show. We have Mike obviously producing. AJ produces sometimes and does like a lot of tech on here. And then we have Crystal, who does our wonderful graphic design with our thumbnails, not AI. She's making them by hand. And that's what all the money goes towards. So it's patreon.com/withoutacountry. And you get one additional video news story every single week. And you get to have first priority as far as like submitting things into the show, topics of discussion, etc. And just like my endless gratitude. But I have endless gratitude for anyone who tunes into the show. If you are not financially able to support it, your time and your energy and things like follows, they mean so much. So thank you for being here and for taking the time to care about the community and the country and the world in which you live. I think it's really important, and give yourself a little pat on the back for that. All right. Let's get into the Knicks story real quick. We are live streaming early because the Knicks are in the NBA Finals. And Mike, tell everyone what you had pitched to me right before we went on air.
Yeah, so right before we went on air, with a lot of things, knowing that I know a former mayoral candidate for the city of New York, when I see things pop up, my first reaction is like, yo, Corinne, what would you do during this? Sure. And this week, I mean, Zoran's been everywhere with this Knicks thing. He's shooting videos for Side Talk. He's getting low with the kid Mero. He's extending bedtimes. I'm just wondering what the mayoralship under Corinne Fisher would have looked like if the Knicks broke a 27-year curse and made it back to the finals.
Right. Obviously, I would be super excited. First of all, I want to be very clear. I like that Zoran's sitting amongst the people. If they offered me a courtside seat, I'm 100% taking that. I'm not pretending. To me, it's like, it's performative, like plebeian play that he's sitting amongst. For any other game, I'm happy to sit anywhere. But like, stop. I work a whole. If the mayor can't sit courtside, who the fuck should? The mayor has more right to sit courtside than anyone, than celebrities. And furthermore, maybe I would make Celebrity Row all New Yorkers, people who have been Knicks fans, since 1997, since 27 years ago, like, or what is that the year? I was like, it's 27 years ago. I can't do math. That's who I would make. Maybe I would like task some kind of initiative that it's like celebrities can't sit on celebrity row, because the true celebrities in New York City are New Yorkers. And, it would be funny because I'm sure like real New Yorkers would be like spilling, beers onto the court while Jalen's trying to like make a jump shot. It would be great. But I feel like the energy would just be so much more incredible. I just think I want a lot more access for true New Yorkers. And so I think a lot of the stuff Zoran is doing, like, is whatever, but I think it's kind of like a little bit too Instagram influency for me. And I like that he painted the subway stations all around Madison Square Garden. I think that's fine. I think that is like a nice celebration, good for city morale, and not expensive. Like, I think that's like a fine way to spend the budget. Paint is not expensive. It's not like you're not pissing away budget when it comes to that. But I think like all the kind of like hanging out with like Instagram influencers and stuff, that's fine to do when you're trying to get policy pushed. But when you're just doing it to celebrate like the Knicks, that feels very self-serving and not like a proper use of our time. So I would try to push initiatives to make the game itself more accessible to New Yorkers. The fact that the cheapest ticket for the Madison Square Garden games right now is $5,000 is criminal. I would use it as an opportunity to possibly push some legislation, and I wouldn't be able to do this myself, but push some legislation regarding ticket sales, which was part of my initial platform anyway, because if anyone deserves to be in the seats to watch the Knicks in the NBA finals, it is everyday working class New Yorkers, the same people who have rallied outside Madison Square Garden because they couldn't afford tickets to watch it on a screen. And I just don't think there's enough access. I think it's like a real caste system, and that really bothers me. And also, like, no one's more spirited than the New Yorkers who wait outside Madison Square Garden. And so I would push, use it as an opportunity to, make, something called like the Knicks finals bill or something, what that was introduced legislation, because it's unfair that Knicks, true OG Knicks fans weren't able to financially be a part of this, moment that you could argue like the reason the Knicks got there is because Knicks fans are so fucking amazing. And then also I would just use it to probably do some kind of like a give back kind of a thing. Like, my volunteering was like a big part of it. And so, I would have like different like give back opportunities, volunteer for this, volunteer for that, something. Maybe we talk to all the Knicks players and we find their favorite New York charities and we highlight them. And, afterwards the mayor and Jalen Brunson, or the mayor and Kat, or whoever, visit these charities and make a pledge to, if the Knicks win, when the Knicks win the finals, we're going to make this kind of, donation or this kind of initiative. I would just try to make it a little bit more constituent based and a little bit less me based, and certainly not like celebrity based. Celebrities are not what makes the Knicks win. It's the love of the everyday fans that makes the Knicks win. So that's my pitch without having really had any time to prep on it, just off the cuff. It's not something that I was like thinking about.
The only pushback I'll give you on that,
whenever
Anne Hathaway mentions OG Anunoby's name, that guy goes for like 30. That Anne Hathaway has some kind of spell on. OG.
Well, I guess he has like a crush on her then. That's, she can talk about him. It's just like, I don't. Yeah, like when I was watching actually news footage from the last time that they were in the finals, and it was just like, it was a bunch of guys from like from the Bronx outside Madison Square Garden who were like ripping the microphone out of the reporter's hands. That's the energy, I don't know. That's what I like. That's who I'm excited to be with. And it was 1999, not 1997. 1997 was the year Spice. It was the year before Spice World came out. Okay. Anyway. All right, let's get into the main stories. We have a lot of kind of interesting stories that you guys pitched. The story that I got asked most to cover this week is a story that I'm going to get into now, which is Pattie Gonia, the drag queen, the environmentalist / drag queen, versus Patagonia, the outdoors clothing and recreational company. this was a story that I was familiar with, and I was going to include it anyway. I certainly wasn't going to include it as the main story, but I bumped it up to a main story because I got so many requests for it. Now, this is a story that I would kind of file under what I'm going to call pop news. You know how there's pop psychology? This is pop news. Not that it's unimportant, but it's news that only affects one individual, basically. Obviously, it can set legal precedent for other people, but overall, it's kind of like a privilege problem for all parties involved. And, it just happens that we are more interested in these kinds of stories than the ones that really will affect our everyday lives. So I will cover it. I think it's interesting. It was pretty complex. And obviously I'm not a lawyer. I had to do a lot of legal research to properly explain this to you. It's certainly not as cut and dry as it seems. On the outside, I know it seems like this big company, Patagonia, is, attacking this smaller entity. First of all, Pattie Gonia, she's not Patagonia, but she's a very well-known person online and has been known for many years. For her environmentalist work, for her Instagram. She's been a famous person for a long time. And FYI, Patagonia's pronouns are she, they. I'm going to be using she throughout though, because it's just honestly, there's already so much confusing language in this. I need to use she for sense of clarity, but I did look it up. She or they are both fine when talking about Patagonia. Okay. And it's funny because the lawsuit is about, whether people would be confused over these two kind of entities or properties. Obviously, Pattie Gonia is not the person's legal name. The person's legal name is Win. And just even in me talking to you about this, it is going to be confusing because I'm going to really have to enunciate Pattie Gonia versus Patagonia. All right. So what's happening here is this is Patagonia, the company's version. So in 2022, they raised concerns over people being confused over these two entities. And there was some kind of a brand deal with Hydro Flask, which is why this initial conversation came to light, right? They had been aware of Pattie Gonia, the drag queen, for a long time. Patagonia, the company, was fine with it. They were like, we're fine. We love, we love what you're doing. Nothing you're doing is infringing on anything we're doing right now. We're both working towards the environment. We know that you exist. They seemed really chill for a company about it, honestly. Obviously, when you're just doing drag and your name is Patagonia, that does fall under parody. It's entertainment. It's comedy. That's pretty well established in America. And with this Hydro Flask deal specifically, Pattie Gonia was supposed to be doing like a collab with Hydro Flask, and Hydro Flask are the ones who, before going into this collab, were kind of like, oh, there might be some brand confusion. We don't want to get sued. We're going to reach out to the company Patagonia to make sure there's not a problem here. And this is important to note because in the court of law, like whether or not there is consumer confusion is one of the main things that the two parties are going to have to prove in a court of law. That's a big part of the lawsuit. So that is important that this third party had already, obviously on the books, reached out to Patagonia, the company, because they thought that there might be, and in that particular deal, it was agreed upon that Pattie Gonia could go on with this Hydro Flask idea collab, but that for this specific collab, that Pattie Gonia, the person, couldn't commercialize the name Pattie Gonia, and couldn't sell merchandise that kind of went overlapped with what Patagonia, the company, already does. So like clothing, stickers, this kind of thing that they already have, because you're getting a trademark for every specific thing, is how I understand it. You're filing for every specific thing. So some people can own some stuff, some people can own the other stuff. And and Patagonia's the company is saying, listen, in 2022 we raised these concerns. Patagonia, the drag queen's version, is that these specific restrictions that were agreed upon. And it's not 100% clear. I've read a lot of documents about this. This will be part of what has to be discussed and proven in court. But these specific agreements were, it seems to me, made it in what's called in good faith, which is that there was written back and forth about it between these two parties via email, but it was not an actual contract that was signed, looked over by lawyers. It was merely terms in good faith, which is very common in the, entertainment or whatever, in any industry. I sign stuff in good faith, or don't sign stuff. I agree upon stuff in good faith all the time. It's a way to expedite the, legal process, or expedite projects, and to not have to pay through the nose for lawyers and to keep revising contracts. But it is just in good faith, which means no contract was signed. And so you're really, trusting people in that situation. And that, again, is interesting to me because that kind of shows why companies work the way that they do, right? It's kind of, I feel like it's pretty unorthodox that Patagonia didn't make Pattie Gonia sign paperwork while that Hydro Flask thing was going on. I think that was like kind of nice of them. And, in hindsight, probably stupid of them, And so if you want to know why companies aren't nice and why companies continually sue, it's because if you give a person an inch, they take a mile. That's why. And I saw so many people commenting on Pattie Gonia, because I think I follow, or if not, I used to follow her. I'm not sure if I still follow her, but she came up on my algorithm naturally, which is how I saw this, because a lot of my friends were liking it. And I'm like, did you guys even look into this for 2 seconds? Because of course they're just blindly liking what Pattie Gonia says. And they're, of course, against the man and against corporations. Like, Pattie Gonia is not a tiny little person. She's very wealthy, but based on how famous she is, and all the things that she's done, and that doesn't take away from any of the environmentalist work that she's done. I looked it up; it's incredible. She's raised so much money for and visibility for environmental issues and for getting the LGBTQ community more engaged. Obviously, it's June now, which is why a lot of this stuff has flared up again. But that's because Pattie Gonia, I think in this instance, is like playing it up a little bit. Like, how could you possibly, throw a lawsuit against a drag queen during Pride Month? Well, first of all, this lawsuit came before Pride Month. And second of all, yeah, you can't just break the law during June because you're gay or because you're a drag queen. Like, what? Again, with this like leftist identity nonsense, like the law is not in it when it comes to trademarks and parody isn't overly confusing. There's actually a lot of legal precedent. So, I saw the comments were very divided. And for the people who were just kind of like, Pattie Gonia, I'm on your side. Like, did you really look into this? And I know a lot of you people, sorry, a lot of people who reached out, you probably wanted me to talk about this, like in a fuck the man kind of a way. And I don't know that I have the grounds to do that. Patagonia, from what I'm seeing, has been pretty nice throughout this process. And Pattie Gonia kept chipping away and now is in legal trouble, rightly so, that she could get out of if she just didn't merchandise this stuff, which was already brought up as an issue 4 years ago. Pattie Gonia's, the person's statement on this is that the company Patagonia had only requested restrictions for that specific Hydro Flask collaboration, that those requests her and her team honored, and that there was never a broad promise governing all future uses of the Pattie Gonia name. And that is true. That does not, however, protect her in court because, trademark infringement is still trademark infringement, whether or not you previously agreed upon it contractually. You don't need to agree upon it contractually because there are already other much broader umbrella laws that cover this. So it's not a person by person basis. All right. And then there are longer articles. I'm going to keep going through it in the way that I mapped out. Let's see. And, and for some backstory, Pattie Gonia, the person, has been using this drag name publicly since 2018. She's always been a drag performer and an environmental activism persona. But Patagonia, the company, is arguing that the name, certain logo designs, and later trademark filings are too close to Patagonia's protected trademarks. I did look up some stuff. I did find some like stickers that I think were officially created by Pattie Gonia, the person, not fan art. That definitely looked way too much like the Patagonia logo. I'm like with the kind of sunrise elements that they have. Like the lines. You guys probably know what if you, Mike, you want to bring up the Patagonia logo and the Patagonia font. I don't know if you guys know this. Fonts are also, companies spend a lot of money developing specific fonts. I guess probably the most known instance of a specific font is like that Walt Disney font, right? You can't just use that font. That is a trademarked font for Disney. They spent time, money, and energy getting that font created. So you can't just do it. Yeah. So I saw Pattie Gonia, the person, creating stickers that had this, very similar, sunrise, sunset, mountains kind of pattern and a very similar font. And like, you can't fucking do that. And it doesn't even matter if the stuff was created yet, because this lawsuit is about that she filed to do so, right? And so it's the filing that flagged Patagonia, the company. Additionally, people are saying like, well, Patagonia, the company, shouldn't even talk because they, trademarked Patagonia, which is a place that like exists naturally in the world. And like, I hear you, but that's not a valid argument. They already did, and they have. So I don't know what to tell you. That's not that. Just throw that argument out, because you would get destroyed in court if you brought that to the table. Not a thing. And Pattie Gonia, the person, is continuing to argue that the name is parody, artistic expression, and Patagonia, the company, is just seeking merely $1 in damages, which obviously is very, from the book of Taylor Swift. When you're seeking a dollar in damages, that is really signaling that this isn't about money. This is about principle, right? But Patagonia is also asking Pattie Gonia for trademark related relief and legal fees, which could be, very financially significant, of course. All right. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Hopefully that gives you, again, it was a pretty confusing, but also not confusing when you learn about it. Just a lot to go through. This particular lawsuit that Patagonia, the company, filed was filed in January of this year, 2026. And they're in a federal court in California, and their arguments are specifically Pattie Gonia is confusingly similar to Patagonia. Some branding and logo elements resemble Patagonia's protected trademarks. The trademark application would overlap with Patagonia's activities and products. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm like, outdoor wear, stickers. That's when I'm talking about overlap, that's what the overlap of the application means. Patagonia the company is legally obligated to defend its trademarks or risk weakening them. And that's possibly the most important part of this lawsuit, right? Because even though Pattie Gonia, the drag queen, and many lawyers and journalists who have talked about this feel that she is a sympathetic character because it's a company versus one individual, even though, again, she's not an individual. She has like a whole company, but a much smaller company, of course. But Patagonia can't just let this go because of who she is, because it then weakens their trademark and their entire company. It sets a legal precedent how far you can go in parodying Patagonia's name, their logo, and their products. So they have to do this. Like, what do you expect them to do? Just be like, oh, it's June, I guess I can let a drag queen take down my entire company? Use your noggins a little bit, guys. I sounded such like a grammar school teacher there, but it just this is what I mean when we're thinking more about identity than facts. Like, the law is the law, and the law exists for a reason. And right now, we all like Pattie Gonia. I like Pattie Gonia too. I want her to have a nice life. I like what she does. She's entertaining. But just because we like someone doesn't mean that they can steal another person's trade, like another company's trademark. Like, what? You can't do that. And yeah, a larger part of this lawsuit is like, when does it stop being parody? And uh, again, this is, argued highly, but a lot of people, me included, believe it stops being parody when you create a whole product line and merchandise and a capitalistic company based off this parody. Well, then it's not parody anymore. It's not an SNL sketch. It's a monetized company. And furthermore, when we're talking about environmentalism, what is the last thing that we need more of? Merch. I try to be really low level on how much merch I make. Obviously, like, merch is publicity, but you have to be really responsible when you're making merch because, like, not that it's fast fashion, and that's why I use like smaller companies and stuff and I try to be responsible with merch. But like, when we're talking about what affects the environment, well, yeah, like a big thing that affects the environment is like producing a bunch of shit that we already have, and that is just to make someone's name or brand bigger. So that's why I try to be. I go back and forth with how much merch I want to create. I know it's funny to say, well, I'm wearing merch, but I try to do my best. That's why I do things like Rent the Runway, and I buy a lot of my clothes off Depop because that's stuff that already existed in the world. I really try to stay away from fast fashion, like a Runway or a Shein and stuff. And like, there's a whole other conversation in there about like only people who are privileged enough to afford things that aren't fast fashion can afford them. I'm going to push back on you and say Depop has undone that. Depop is cheaper than Shein and Runway, and it's a way that we can all share things. It's thrifting online, basically. This is not an ad for Depop, but I'm just saying. It's an example of being environmentally conscious while shopping. I fucking love shopping, of course. So Patagonia, the company, says that the case is not about opposing drag performance, obviously, LGBTQ plus advocacy, and it's not. And I see so many people in the comment section trying to make it like anti-LGBTQ plus, and it's fucking not. And people are like trying to say like, oh, this was like, they're trying to argue that like they saw, that Patagonia somehow saw that there was a lot of attacks on LGBTQ people right now. And that like, apparently this would be like the perfect time for them to like go in and get Pattie Gonia. I don't think that's true at all. And I think that's a disservice to the many, many LGBTQ plus individuals who are actually getting fucked over right now with legislation. Who I'm guessing Pattie Gonia is a multimillionaire based on her following, but like certainly not doing poorly. And for her to be the poster child of attacks on LGBTQ people is a real slap in the face to people who are going through real plights. So please don't do that. It's again, leftist nonsense, and incorrect, right? And when we misuse who we are and ideologies for like financial gain, which is how I would argue that's not the case. And again, like Patagonia, the company, has worked side by side with Pattie Gonia since 2018. They've known about her. Like, they've been fine with it. And it's not like she just like became super famous yesterday. She's been famous for years, So it's not like, oh, she just popped off and now they're going to put a stop to it. That's not the case. It's not the case. And again, the two central legal questions are the likelihood of consumer confusion between Pattie Gonia and Patagonia. And I think that's very easy to argue in court. And two, what is parody and First Amendment protection? Courts often give parody substantial protection, but that protection can also become more complicated when the parody is also used commercially on merchandise and trademark applications. And then the third issue is trademark policing. Trademark owners are often expected to enforce their rights consistently. That line goes back to what I said earlier, that Patagonia has a legal obligation to enforce their rights. Otherwise, their trademark weakens. That is the obligation of the trademark owner. Many legal commentators note that companies sometimes sue even sympathetic parties because failing to act can later weaken trademark claims. And I think, honestly, if Patagonia, the company, learns anything from this lawsuit, it's that anyone who even starts to parody them in the future is going to get hit with a lawsuit immediately because they were nice and understanding to Pattie Gonia, the person, for all these years. And this is what they get. They get her saying, you know what, actually, I am going to make a whole line of outdoors clothing, just like you do. And when we both do the same thing. So now when people think about environmentalism, maybe they'll think of Pattie Gonia instead of Patagonia. You can't do that. You can't do that. I feel like I'm going crazy sometimes being on the left, the people that are defending this. You can't do that. If a lawyer is listening, please understand. Please write me if I am missing something. Again, like, I think that it's fine that there is a court case. I think that Pattie Gonia, the person, does have like an argument, but I do think Patagonia, the company, has a way stronger argument, you know? All right. So we talked about the Hydro Flask. And was third party complied. Okay, the collaboration. The, and the specific Patagonia font is called Bellway font. And it's interesting because in the email back and forth, there was like a specific line that Pattie Gonia and her team used. And let's see, because I think a lot of places aren't even talking about the Hydro Flask collaboration and what went into that. So again, here's more language. According to Patagonia, the company Hydro Flask itself became concerned that Pattie Gonia's branding might create confusion regarding sponsorship or affiliation, and contacted Patagonia, the company, which is what led to these initial 2022 discussions. So Pattie Gonia, the person, cannot claim like, oh, I didn't know that I was like bothering them in any way. That absolutely can't be brought up in court. And I think there was some language. I'm trying to look for this exact sentence they used, but there looks like there was no actual, again, it was just in good faith via this email, these email notes about Hydro Flask, and that Pattie Gonia, the person's team, responded basically like, we will make a note of, your concerns. And they wrote that, which is much more vague legally, in lieu of writing back something like, we agree to abide by these terms and conditions. And so that's going to be that is, and so just keep in mind when you're making an agreement in good faith in email, those emails, if anything happens, are going to be brought up in court. So be very careful with the language that you put in writing. Okay. And in email, in a text message, certainly in an email, number one, in a text message, number two, and even on things like, we've all heard the story of, making a contractual agreement on a bar napkin and signing it. That kind of shit actually does hold up in court. I know it sounds silly. It can. Obviously, you have the argument that if a person is signing a contract when they're intoxicated, it weakens or totally undoes it. I don't know if that's state by state, but it makes it weaker for sure. All right, so we did the Hydro Flask, we did the training, and so now when we go to trademarks, there was a specific trademark legal battle that happened between Jack Daniels and a dog toy company called Bad Spaniels. I really went deep on this, guys. And that happened. What year did that happen? That's what I'm looking for right now. I have the information, but I don't know where in this actual. Let me look at the. Okay, so it was in 2023. Okay. Jack Daniels v. Bad Spaniels is a landmark, and this is from the Temple University Beasley School of Law website, is a landmark Supreme Court trademark case involving VIP Products' squeaky dog toy Bad Spaniels, which parodied the iconic Jack Daniels Tennessee whiskey bottle. We've all seen like these dog parody toys. They're very common. The court ruled unanimously in 2023 that the First Amendment does not exempt humorous parodies from trademark infringement if the parody is used as a brand identifier for the infringer's own goods to monetize their own product. So obviously, and the argument here makes sense, right? Because obviously, we all know Jack Daniels because of the work and time and money that Jack Daniels, the whiskey company, put into their iconic brand. So now this dog toy company that has not done the same work is going to monetize off of that, because are you more likely to buy a dog toy that's like a generic character you've never seen anymore, or that's a hilarious spoof or parody of a Jack Daniels bottle? Of course, you're going to buy the Jack Daniels bottle, and you're going to make money off of the work that the Jack Daniels bottle, the Jack Daniels company has already done. And I know you're thinking, well, you're not buying a dog toy in lieu of buying whiskey. That's not the argument there. Again, we're bringing up other things here. So that's the precedent. And, we see the Supreme Court setting legal precedents a lot. We're now in 2026. This is going to probably set some more precedent, but it is going to be based off of this bad Daniels precedent that was already set 3 years prior. I think the public conversation a lot of times is framed as something that is really unnuanced. It's really like the public conversation, for people on Pattie Gonia's side, they've whittled it down to, Patagonia, the huge company, is suing a drag queen over a parody name. And that is not what they're suing her over. They've been okay with that for years. Yeah. So let's see the precedent. I wanted to get over that, and it's not like, you're not saying like the argument is it funny or not? Like, is this funny enough to be a parody? That's also not a legal argument. That's not the judge is not deciding that. They're saying, have you turned this parody into your own brand where you're monetizing a previous brand that did all the work, put in all the legwork for you already? Independent of any agreement, whether it was just for a Hydro Flask, as it seems like it was. I'm on Pattie Gonia's side for that part of the argument, but that's not the main part of the lawsuit. I'm on Pattie Gonia, the person's side, based on what I've seen, that she and her team only agreed to these conditions for the Hydro Flask collaboration. I'm on her side for that. Where I'm not on her side for is the trademark infringement at all. Like, she just, I don't think she has a leg to stand on when it comes to this. There is definitely brand and identity confusion. Maybe not for us who are familiar with both Pattie Gonia the person and Patagonia the brand, but there's a lot of people who are not familiar with this at all. Like, ask your parents if they know who Pattie Gonia is. I don't think they do. But do they know Patagonia? Probably. And like, if they're shopping for Christmas presents in Marshall's and they see, some Pattie Gonia thing and they bring that home for you, you're going to make a fucking TikTok video over it about how they think they got, your right-leaning parents got you a Patagonia windbreaker, and they actually got you a Pattie Gonia windbreaker. And don't you tell me that wouldn't happen, because that would happen, and then everyone have a good laugh over your boomer parents. But that's exactly what this lawsuit is about. That it shouldn't be that close, and there shouldn't be room for such confusion, because brand identity is important. And again, you might not care about it in this case, but if you created your own company, you'd fucking care about it. You'd fucking care about it. You would. That would be your baby. Okay. And then the last thing is, like, I think you're probably sitting at home thinking, like, why can't we just do like a cease and desist? If there wasn't a valid agreement, Patagonia should have just done a cease and desist. Well, a cease and desist is not a legal prerequisite for this. But furthermore, the concerns that they brought up in 2022 that they have written proof of when it comes to Hydro Flask, that legally basically acts as their cease and desist. A cease and desist doesn't have to be like a full cease and desist. Just think of it as like a warning, so it's not like it wasn't like a official cease and desist papers, but it was Patagonia has already brought up in writing their concerns over brand confusion and trademark. Which again, they didn't need to do. It was nice of them to give that warning. They didn't need to do that. They could have hit her with this immediately, as soon as it went from parody to kind of, merchandising. And then also, and I don't know if this is like 100% true, but based on the social media that was going back and forth, Pattie Gonia is saying, please just drop the lawsuit. That's her narrative. But she's not saying anything that she's going to do to make it the lawsuit dropped. What she needs to do for them to drop the lawsuit, and Patagonia, the company, did write this on their social media, is they said if she drops the filing, if she cancels the filing to merchandise this Pattie Gonia clothing, stickers, etc., we will drop the lawsuit. They've already said that. She's really in my opinion, curating a narrative around around herself, and saying like, and kind of like not willing to budge on anything that she's done, and saying like, just Patagonia, just drop this lawsuit. I'm just a gal, and so I think the easiest way to think about this is like, parody is strongest when you're talking about the brand, when you're commenting on a brand, when you're making social or comedic commentary on a brand. Parody is no longer strong and viable when you yourself become the brand. So that's like the easiest way to describe it or to explain it to someone who maybe is confused. Obviously, that's an simplification, but I did do a lot of legal research to bring this to you. And again, a lot of this has changed pretty recently, or some of it has changed pretty recently because of that landmark 2023 case. But when you're creating brands, you got to be up to date with the law. Because previously, for years, courts often gave broad First Amendment protection to, in quotes, artistic and expressive works that reference trademarks. And then I think the only thing, let's see. And then I specifically kind of looked up where the activism element fell into there, like how activism falls into, because activism is not performance or parody, but it's like this different thing. It's not like branding. It said, and what it says, activism doesn't automatically destroy parody. Parody can have a serious political message, just like a political cartoon or something. The law does not require parody to be purely comedic. It can be activist. It can be like activism. It can be political. But when it's a functioning brand with merch, we've undone that, because now it's not just activism anymore. Especially because I don't think she's giving away 100% of profits of this to environmental causes. She's taking a lot of, a percentage of it, if not all of it, for herself. And this is more overlap, is that Pattie Gonia and Patagonia are advocating for many of the same environmental goals. And so then that brings up the question, like, at what point does a parody stop commenting on a brand and start becoming just a parallel version of the original brand? All right. I think that does it. I think I covered it. I think hopefully that made sense. Mike, did that make sense to you? We've lost Mike. He's gone away.
Yeah, no, I had to go deep into the annals for the trademark stuff. No, man, this makes all the sense in the world. The fact that I don't know, like a lot of this seems to be pretty common, like in that world and like across the board, like, people using something people are familiar with, like a play on that, or like my good friend of mine, his name was Stephen Sherwood. All his things would be like SUREWOOD, like you just say the word. So it's like, it is super fun to do, but like, turning around and selling merch is that should immediately set off red flags. Even if it's like, even if they're not a merch company, if it's a company like, if you change your name to like Starbucks, like you still,
right.
you couldn't
Yeah.
put like a, your diva image in the middle of like a green stencil lady. And like, that's going to be, you're going to be able to sell those shirts. It's like, this should go without saying.
Yeah,
Folks.
and it's actually interesting that you bring up the what did you call it? What did you call it?
Just star, STAR, and then like BUX.
Because that reminds me actually of the Nathan For You episode where he created Dumb Starbucks, because that was, that felt, I think at that time, first of all, it was before this 2023 case. And then secondly, he was protected because he wasn't actually starting a chain called Dumb Starbucks that he was monetizing. He was doing a short-lived comedy stunt.
Yeah, this is an art installation.
Exactly. So that's actually I'm glad you brought that up. So that's an exact great example of the difference between these two things. Comedy Central, even they had their legal team review the stunt. They deemed that it was free expression, and that he was legally protected under U.S. fair use and parody laws, which he was at the time. I don't know if that would change now with this 2023 precedent, but yeah, I mean, it's funny that they bring this up because actually I didn't know about this 2023 dog toy lawsuit before today, but that's why I love this show, because I am in Marshall's often getting my sweet baby Prince dog toys. And a lot of times I do see these kind of parody, we have like the fake White Claw dog toys and stuff. And I'm kind of thinking, I'm like, these aren't licensed. How are they like getting away with this? This is not humorous. This is a capitalistic product here that a company is monetizing. And like, yes, I did buy it because it reminded me of White Claw and I thought that was funny over another dog toy. All right. So thank you guys for recommending that. I hope I was able to explain it to you. Especially if you have a law background, if you have anything else to add to this. Again, it was, it was definitely a bigger story to look into. I had to spend more time and kind of understanding what they were going through. But I thought that 2023 case was a good thing that wasn't as included in a lot of these articles, as was the stuff about the Hydro Flask collaboration. And I don't think we need to talk about it any further. I don't think it's worth it. But the two articles that I would recommend you reading that I looked into that I think are very good if you just want to kind of send someone something is the New York Times article. Is good. I think they did a pretty decent job there. It's like a 6-minute article. Patagonia is suing Pattie Gonia over trademark infringement. What to know? I think they did a good job on that article. And then this is like I found this like through the I don't know if this is an LGBTQ site, but I found it through kind of like the LGBTQ web, because I wanted to go to a source that I thought would be heavily on Pattie Gonia's side, as I like to do on this show. And so there's this Snowbrains article, which I can include in the show notes, snowbrains.com. And they have an article by Julia Schneeman from May 31st that I think covers it nicely. And again, just use your head a little bit. And as much as you love Pattie Gonia is still a drag performer, an entertainer, someone who knows how to work public opinion in her favor. And so, she knew that she would have a more sympathetic audience, during this time of the year. So she claims, she wanted to, hold it, not talk about it publicly for other reasons, but it's also an interesting time of year to go public with it when this lawsuit was presented to you in January. I'll just say that. It's not always the people that we want. Again, believe me, I always want to be on the person's side, not the company's side. But laws exist for a reason. I think there was also, yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, unless you have anything else to add on this story, I have a corporation versus the people story.
Oh yeah. And the only last thing I want to say is I think another reason that Patagonia has noted is that there is another, I guess she's a drag queen, Lexi Love. Yeah, an American drag performer. I'm not as familiar with Lexi Love, but um, Lexi Love, who's less known than Pattie Gonia, but was on RuPaul's Drag Race. So anyone who's on RuPaul's Drag Race is pretty well known. I think she was going under, fighting a similar lawsuit, and Pattie Gonia, is now turning it into this like, I want to speak up for the smaller voices, and it's like, okay, sure, yeah, Lexi Love, okay, only has like 45,000 followers, I guess. So much smaller than Pattie Gonia, whereas Pattie Gonia has like in the millions, 1.8 million. All right, go ahead, Michael, with your corporation story. And this is when we're on the person side, not the corporation side,
Yes.
right? According to you, yeah.
Listen, up to you. I'll let
Obviously.
you make the decision.
Yeah,
here,
and same with my story. I'm just presenting. To me, it's clearly Patagonia is the company is the winner, but convince me otherwise.
Okay, so I mean, look, there's so much to go into on this one, but it gained a lot of popularity. This is the toy company Bricks and Mini Figs. It is a corporation that has many independent retailers that it franchises out, and it's like widely considered to be like the number one reseller for Lego stuff.
Okay.
Right. So it's like if you want to get rid of your Legos quick, you hit up Bricks and Minifigs. They'll sell them for you. And
Minifigs stands for figurines, not figs the fruit. Okay, that's why I was confused.
No.
I was like, what? Okay,
yeah, that
cool.
would be an odd business.
Right.
Home Depot. Plus, we got fruit and stuff.
Yeah, I was like, what? Okay.
So this gentleman, his dad is like in pretty bad health. His dad has one of the most extensive Lego collections on earth, right?
Okay.
And he brings it into Bricks and Minifigs, has the discussion with them, and they are they agree. There's a contract signed that says Bricks and Minifigs does not own these Legos, but will sell them and we'll give a percent, like we'll keep a small percentage, and the lion's share of the money goes to you.
Okay.
Well, the person that they signed that contract with decided they're leaving the country, they're leaving town, they want to get rid of this business. They call Bricks and Minifigs corporate and say, hey, we're thinking about getting out of here in like a certain amount of time, just the heads up to you. Corporate says, look, we got a guy who's going to come by your store, don't even worry about it. She starts to the owner starts to do an inventory for like everything going on. And they kick him out of the store. Long story short, they still have these figurines there. They are not honoring the contract that was written with the previous owner.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going back and forth, and now this guy YouTuber Reckless Ben has made it his own personal crusade to go follow them. Apparently this guy has been issued a arrest warrant which will include no bail. So if
the sick guy's son,
the YouTuber who's been
the YouTuber is not related to the family.
No, yes, the YouTuber has no relation to the family.
Okay, so this is just a YouTuber who has a special interest in this story.
Yes. So he said another team had already put out a video about this, but Bricks and Minifigs, large corporation, threatened legal action against this channel. This channel took it down. This guy goes, look, I've looked into cults before. I've looked into X, Y, and Z. I'm not worried about getting my hands dirty. I will follow this till the ends of the earth. Now this guy, he's been.
And what legal action do they have against the YouTuber? He's merely reporting on it. Are they saying like a defamation and slander?
Exactly, defamation and slander. And it's like, look, the Bricks and Minifigs, their answer, right? When the kid who came to like pick up his dad's stuff, when he came to the Bricks and Minifigs store, he was told in no uncertain terms, hey, if you want to pursue this matter any further, we're going to sue you. We are a massive corporation who can take on a significant amount of debt to win this lawsuit. We will grind you into nothing more than these figures are even worth. You should probably just walk away. So
this is so crazy though. Like I don't number one, like this must be the most, I know you said it was like the most extensive or one of the most extensive collections that in the world. So obviously it must have been quite extensive, but like, I don't understand what legal grounds Bricks and Mini Figs has to stand on, because like how like they think that they should offer the solution is that the sick guy gets no compensation. How is that even? No one's going to agree to that.
So what it comes down to is, right, the business, the franchise owner signed the contract, then handed over the business to a new person. That new person did not sign that contract. They just took the store as is, and they were considering the figures that were there part of their inventory. There was no inventory given from the old owner. That was like a big point of like rushing the old owner out. They have it on video of like, you know, all of this being documented, of the woman being told she has to leave her store, she's going to be arrested. You know, it's the whole thing is a mess. So I will tell people, you know,
there has to be some legal precedent for something like that, for like consignment stores or something where similar things have happened. So I mean, even like baseball card stores, that sounds like a really, I mean, this is like a, you know, but even like, you know, after my dad died, like, you know, sometimes people would drop stuff off, and like I spent a long time making sure everyone got their shit back. Like he wasn't a consignment store, but just like anything that was like held, I was like, I had to make sure everyone got their shit back.
Of course, but there's no moral qualms here with these people. They don't seem to care.
Yeah.
And I found this super interesting now. Like, this is like the latest revelation, is that there is a possible this was a no bail arrest warrant issued by American Fork Police Department, who he also alleges may be protecting Joshua Johnson and Brandon Best, the owners of the Oregon branch of Bricks and Mini Figs, due to their shared ties to the Mormon church.
Oh my God.
You got Mormons having Mormons backs. I mean, I've seen the videos where this kid shows up and the cops trespass him immediately. He's like, I have a contract. I want to get these figures back. They're like, look, if you show up here again, you're getting arrested.
Yeah. So. Oh, that is a juicy story. I know that you said that this was, you know, you were very invested in this story this week. I can see why it is juicy.
Truly. So, like I said, I can't possibly do this justice. There's hundreds of hours at this point of YouTube videos up about this. So do your own research. Get back to me. Tell me if I'm way off base here, and maybe Bricks and Mini Figs is in the right, and the little guy is the one who should be getting screwed.
Yeah, for that one, I don't see how. I mean, again, it gets tricky with the franchise owner handing over the shop. That's the tricky part. But I feel like there has to be some legal. It can't just be like, whoops. I mean, unless it's similar to like filing for bankruptcy kind of a thing. I don't know. That seems very fucked up. All right, let's get into our next main story, because as usually we've got, all right, well, it's not too much. Most of the meat of the show today I left for main stories, just because I knew that we were going to talk about them a lot. So now we'll get into Delaney Hall, which was the, you know, ice nightmare of this week in my home state of New Jersey. And all right, let's make sure. All right. So I'm going to take an article. So if you don't know what's going on, you know, a lot of people who have been imprisoned, taken captive by ICE in New Jersey, at Delaney Hall in Newark. They're on a hunger strike because of treatment and conditions in the facility. A lot of people have been protesting. And Mikey Sherrill, the governor of New Jersey, brought in, you know, things were getting out of hand with ICE. So she then brought in the state police, and that made things even fucking crazier. I don't know what was going on in her mind that she thought bringing in the New Jersey State Police would de-escalate the ICE situation. Obviously, it made it much worse. They're, you know, gassing protesters, slamming people to the ground. I think someone's leg got run over with a truck. It was absolute fucking chaos. And, you know, very shortly after getting elected, has turned into her first political disaster, and people are pissed. I mean, anytime someone on the left is immediately, I'm going to say, colluding with the police. You know that, perhaps you might not have elected the right person, which is fucking devastating. But yes, this is a New York Magazine article called "Andy Kim Wants Delaney Hall to Outrage You." Delaney Hall, a federal immigrant, and this is by Nia Prater, intelligence or staff writer who covers New York politics. And for those of you who don't know, geographically, Newark is like right by New York City. So this is taking place in New Jersey, but a lot of New York City journalists and activists have gone over there. I also I was thinking of going over there because I know they need more protesters. But we're also very close to getting Bill A-101 brought to the floor. Call Carl Hasty, shout out, as well as the Creep Act is definitely, I believe, being brought to the assembly floor. I just heard that news right before I signed on. And so I'm like, I don't know if I also have time to get beaten to the ground by also just kind of like, I'm like, can the boys go to the violent ones? That's I'm like, can the boys go to the violent ones? I mean, a cop's going to fucking kill me. So I think the boys should go. All right. So Delaney Hall, a federal immigration detention center in Newark, New Jersey, has been the site of escalating clashes in recent days as demonstrators have gathered in support of detainees on a reported hunger strike over poor conditions in the facility, only to be met with force from federal agents. Numerous arrests have taken place, including of 9 demonstrators who were taken into custody last Thursday. New Jersey Senator Andy Kim was involved in one of these skirmishes last Monday when he visited the site to conduct oversight and was hit with pepper spray alongside protesters. And just a heads up, if you are thinking of going to this or anything similar, wear a helmet because they're hitting people in the head. Wear either a painter's mask or a gas mask. Depending on where you are, look up gas masks. They're illegal in a lot of places, including New York City. So don't like get arrested for something stupid like having something illegal. Just look into that. But a gas mask or painter's mask, a COVID style mask is your last resort. Doesn't really protect you from anything as far as what they're doing, but better than nothing. Goggles, I would say. And as always, when you go to a protest, writing down a phone number of someone who can get you out of jail if you are detained. Write that in Sharpie on your forearm. Just a reminder. Okay. Kim is just the latest local politician to find himself on the front lines of the fight over Delaney Hall, which was reopened as a detention facility last year. LaMonica McIver, a New Jersey representative, my mom's favorite, is currently facing federal charges after being accused of assaulting an ICE officer during an attempted oversight visit last year. Allegations she denies. If you guys remember, LaMonica McIver is the representative. My mom brought a basket of cookies to her office and was like, "Thanks for fighting for us." It's a classic die-fi. Love that woman. I spoke with Kim on Friday about what he learned during his visit to Delaney Hall and whether anything has really changed at the Department of Homeland Security since Kristi Noem's firing. You guys know I usually don't love an interview, but I thought this one, because it was specifically with a politician who was on the ground, might be different than other things that we have taken in that are kind of just like bare bones, like stories. There's also a lot, if you're really interested in this, there's been a lot of good on-site investigative, well, not even investigative, just like on-site reporting from people with their phone, like political activists who are on site. I think, for that situation, that's a good resource to have. So the interviewer asks, could you walk me through what you experienced during your visit to the facility? Andy Kim says, I went to Delaney Hall. I've gone several times, but I went in particular because of the reports of protests inside. I wanted to hear why this hunger strike was happening. I showed up on Monday and first of all was not allowed inside, even though I had an appointment. And that's been happening right and left. Politicians not being let inside. I believe at one point Mikey Sherrill was denied being let inside. Geo Group, the company that runs Delaney Hall, the guards just decided they weren't going to let me in, which just shows you they don't care at all about what the American people or Congress thinks about them or about oversight. I actually had to call Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen directly and talked to him personally to be able to get access into the facility. And when I went inside and told the Geo Group head about being denied entry, he actually just looked me in the eye and called me a liar. just said that I was making the whole thing up, which is, again, just absolutely mind-boggling that taxpayers are giving them $1 billion to run Delaney Hall. I went and talked to the detainees. Trump often calls them the worst of the worst, saying that these are violent criminals. But the people I met were a pregnant woman that's not getting the medical care that she needs. She's being held there indefinitely. And she's literally just asked me, like, does she need to be prepared to have her baby in Delaney Hall? There was an 18-year-old high school senior who just wants to go to prom and graduate, a stage 3 lung cancer patient who actually wants to leave the country. He wants to just go back home and spend whatever remaining months he has with his family, but he's stuck and can't go. That's fucking crazy. That's crazy. They're all crazy. That one is specifically extremely crazy. If you want to self-deport, you should absolutely be able to do that. These are the people that I met. If obviously if you've committed no crime, which I'm guessing they haven't. The other thing I just want to hit, because the detainees were very clear with me, is that they have concerns about the conditions, but the main thing they're protesting is the fact that there's just no movement when it comes to their cases, that they are not having anything that resembles some type of opportunity to have their cases heard. Welcome to America, I say. I roll. They showed me this document on a bulletin board in the hallway where it said that one judge has 74 cases before her in just one day. Many of them have been there 8 months to a year, if not longer. That's costing the taxpayer dollars. That's just more and more money we're wasting here. And it's lining the pockets of Geo Group and these for-profit companies that are experiencing the best business in their company's history. Yeah, so I know if it was hard for you to think highly of a company with that Patagonia story, here, insert Geo Group as the company that you can hate this week. Because I know, again, it's more fun to hate the companies. Can you tell me about the detainees' hunger strike, which is still going on? That's the interviewer. Andy Kim says a number of them are doing a hunger strike. Others are more broadly protesting alongside them, but they are being retaliated against. A number of the people participating in the protests talked about how the guards there were threatening them, saying if they don't stop the protests, they're going to be transferred elsewhere. One person said their wife is vocal outside calling for his freedom, and the guards told him that he needs to shut his wife's mouth. So threats not just for his actions, but for hers. And actually, that detainee was forcibly transferred in the middle of the night, and others have been as well. There were reports yesterday about 4 detainees who were transferred in an ambulance. We are trying to get an understanding of what happened, but there were reports of physical force that was used against them, as well as potential pepper spray used inside the facility. I just want people to understand about the conditions. I'm hearing so many people talk about the difficulty they have getting medical care. They have one full-time doctor there for 800 detainees, and many of them have significant medical needs. And this is something Geo Group could fix. Geo Group could hire more doctors if they wanted to, but that's less profit for them. Geo Group could get better food, could get food that is able to deal with people's allergies and dietary restrictions, but that's less profit for Geo Group. The extreme heat that many are facing, or the lack of hot water in the bathrooms, and the filthiness of the floors. And we know, like, heat cold issues is an issue that often kills, injures, hurts people in the prison system as well. So very aligned with problems there. The filthiness of the floors, that's all fixable. But then that's less profit for Geo Group. And Geo Group is making many of these detainees work cleanup. Sometimes they pay them maybe $1 a day or a couple of dollars a day. Others just don't get paid at all. Again, it's a big racket, and that's taxpayer dollars going into it. The interviewer then says the DHS is denying much of what's been reported, maintaining that there's no hunger strike, that detainees are receiving proper care and food. And we know they're not, because the reports of people dying, this is not isolated to Delaney Hall, and that the standard of care at Delaney Hall is better than other prisons. From your experience, how unusual is this level of obfuscation? I never can say that word, where you have a federal agency saying that you're not seeing what you're seeing. Yeah, the federal being gaslit by the federal agency. Andy Kim says, I wish I could tell you that this is rare and uncommon, but we're also seeing a Pentagon. I realize this should be up here. we're also seeing a Pentagon that's been shooting missiles at boats in the Caribbean and calling them terrorists with no evidence, no proof, no authorization from Congress. We see this illegal, unconstitutional war in Iran. We see Health and Human Services making a mockery of the vaccine approval process. This is a systemic problem all across the board. Assault on our rule of law is part of the culture of this administration. Again, the GEO Group, I told you, they couldn't care less about congressional oversight like that. But you want to know who else worked for the GEO Group? Tom Holman. You want to know who else worked for the GEO Group? The new head of ICE, who they just appointed, came straight from there. This is a revolving door of corruption. GEO Group gives the Trump campaign millions of dollars. They give the inauguration millions of dollars. They have an investor's phone call talking about how this is the greatest time of their company's history and how people that were on their paywall are now in leadership. They're getting big billion-dollar contracts, and I'm sure a lot of the people who work at ICE will go work at GEO Group and Core Civic afterward. They're doing their time so that they can get their big payout later. Their reward for all of the efforts so that they did within the administration to funnel that money to these for-profit companies, causing so much human misery, as the output for that profit. That's what's happening. And I want the American people to see it because it's not just theoretical. I'm going to be heading back to the Capitol soon, and the business of next week is about reconciliation, a reconciliation bill that would give $70 billion plus to ICE and CBP on top of all the money they got through that reconciliation bill last year. There's not a dollar in that bill that's about helping Americans pay for healthcare, not a dollar in that bill for grocery prices or gas. But there is a lot in there for GEO Group, a lot in there for ICE with no reforms, no accountability, nothing since the killings of Renee Good and Alex Pretty that we see not as just a one-off. We're seeing that same type of behavior in Newark, New Jersey right now and elsewhere around the country. So I want the American people to see it. They see the violence in the streets of New Jersey right now and what's happening at Delaney Hall, but I want them to also see that Congress is gathering to enable and further that through this legislation, and I want it to stop. I want the American people to have the outrage that they had from Minnesota and put this Trump administration back on their heels for a period of time. I want the colleagues of mine in Congress, the Republicans who are going to put their name next to their vote to feel this. And I want to do everything we can to stop it. And if we can't stop it, I want every American to have this in their minds when they go to vote in November. Interviewer then says, in recent weeks, DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen has been threatening to pull department agents from airports in sanctuary cities. Now he's levying the same threat against Newark Liberty Airport, claiming agents there would be used to help respond to the Delaney Hall protests. What's your reaction to that? Andy Kim says, I wish I could tell you that cooler heads will prevail. But this is an administration that has raised the costs for the American people through tariffs so that they can try to have an extortionary foreign policy that bullies other countries to do deals with Trump's family. This is an administration that is costing the American people upwards of $44 billion to $45 billion more in gas and diesel costs since the start of this war. You hear it from Trump. He doesn't care. He says it point blank that he doesn't care about the personal finances and the struggles of American families. So when I hear the secretary or others use those types of threats, I'm concerned because I've seen this administration shut down and stop funding for the Gateway Tunnel and for other things in the past. We have to be concerned about these types of actions, and they would rather do that than actually try to solve the problem, which is about bettering conditions and giving people their time in court. The interviewer says then, you previously served with Secretary Mullen in the Senate before he replaced Kristi Noem at DHS. Her time there was chaotic and drew widespread criticism. Have you seen a change in how DHS operates under his tenure? And he says, I haven't necessarily seen a change in the politics. I have been able to engage with him more. He and I talk, and I can tell him what's happening in New Jersey. For instance, during his confirmation, I raised real concerns about their efforts to try and build a warehouse detention facility in Roxbury. He said he understands that is something that he does not have local support on. And as a result, he raised his own concerns about that. I'm going to continue to press him and hopefully get a full change in policy. They've paused that for furtherance, but I want them to just shut that project down once and for all. He acknowledges that maybe we shouldn't be doing things against the will of local communities And I want him to know, in the same vein, that Newark doesn't want Delaney Hall. The same holds for Elizabeth, which is another town in New Jersey, which doesn't want a detention facility there. And what you need to know about Newark, New Jersey and Elizabeth, New Jersey, they're both lower income towns, high rates of violence, and very diverse, a lot of people of color. So kind of, the same areas that America likes to prey on time and time again. Instead of helping people that, and also, definitely, especially Newark is, I would say, is like more Black, although I think there's like a big Latino presence there too. But Elizabeth, I would guess probably more immigrants there than in Newark. My best friend's family immigrated there originally. The same holds for Elizabeth, which doesn't want a detention facility there. That's what I'm going to continue to push for. So he and I, we have our differences when it comes to policy and execution. We had those differences as senators. We continue to have those differences, but my job is to try to solve this problem. I'm earnestly trying to solve this problem for the detainees and their families, for the people of New Jersey. These detainees, they can't wait for a new person to come. And then the rest of it is just kind of like a political grandstand thing. But I thought he made a lot of good points, and I really liked kind of his insight. And Andy Kim is a politician that, for now, I like. And what's getting another ICE situation that I wanted to highlight that has really bad conditions as well, that is getting a lot less news coverage than Delaney Hall, is in Texas. There is a place called Camp East Montana, which is confusing because it's Camp East Montana, but it's located in Texas. And so this coverage of this is from a local outlet called the Texas Tribune. And it says ICE sued over inhumane conditions at Camp East Montana in West Texas. The El Paso tent camp has seen at least 3 detainees' deaths, a measles outbreak, and nearly 50 detention standards violations in less than 1 year of operation. And we don't need to go through this whole thing. I just wanted to, and it's by Alex Nguyen. I probably said that wrong. I know that's like a popular last name, but I forgot how to pronounce it. That is the journalist who wrote it. So a group of legal and civil rights organizations late Friday, and this was published on May 30th, just so you have context. So a group of legal and civil rights organizations late Friday sued U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement over conditions at Camp East Montana in El Paso, the country's largest immigration detention facility. Camp East Montana is nothing short of a civil rights catastrophe, Kyle Virgin, senior staff attorney at the ACLU's National Prison Project, said in a statement. We're suing to ensure that no other human being has to endure the inhumane treatment that the Trump administration has inflicted on our clients. A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security called claims of inhumane conditions at the facility categorically false. And then there's a bunch of shit where they're like, ensuring the safety and security is our whole thing, blah, 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 nonsense, lies. Filed by the ACLU of Texas, the ACLU, the Texas Civil Rights Project, and the law firm Farella, Braun, and Martel, the federal lawsuit comes less than a year after the opening of the sprawling tent camp. In that time, the facility has seen at least 3 detainee deaths, including a homicide, a nearly month-long measles outbreak, and nearly 50 detention standards violations, as reported by ICE's own inspectors. So if that's what ICE's own inspectors were reporting, imagine what's really going on, prompting calls for the camp's closure from immigrant advocates and Democratic lawmakers. The civil rights groups behind the lawsuit also alleged in a December letter that detained immigrants were subject to medical neglect, physical and sexual abuse by officers, insufficient food, and denial of meaningful access to attorneys. In March, ICE switched out the facility's prime operator for a more experienced contractor, saying the agency would work closely with them to improve services, including higher standards of medical care. Still, in a subsequent letter to ICE dated May 22nd, the group said the situation continued to deteriorate and outlined additional complaints. Friday's lawsuit argues that conditions at the facilities are unconstitutional punishment and violate detainees' due process rights under the Fifth Amendment. So DHS is downplaying all of these fucking allegations. Of course, prior to this lawsuit, there was a 35-year-old man who had filed a petition in January seeking release from ICE detention. According to the filing, he was a high school teacher in Cameroon, but fled after being kidnapped and tortured amid a separatist conflict. He sought asylum after crossing through a New Mexico port of entry in December 2024. An immigration judge later denied his application, and he appealed it. In a statement provided by the civil rights group, this man said that he had been beaten at Camp East Montana and never thought he would face such severely violent treatments in the United States. He was also placed in solitary confinement for 15 days. All right. So just like it's a purgatory. Expected to ultimately reach a 5,000 bed capacity. The camp had a daily average of more than 2,500 detainees as of April 2nd, according to the most recent public data from ICE. The facility has also held the largest number of detained immigrants thus far in the fiscal year of 2026. The Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse at Syracuse University found. Camp East Montana is at the epicenter of the administration's cruel deportation agenda, Savannah Kumar, staff attorney at the ACLU of Texas, said in a statement. All right. So that's just a little bit what's going on there. I wanted to give Camp East Montana proper coverage as well. Just because, Delaney Hall has been getting so much press, but that doesn't mean that equally inhumane situations aren't happening under the watch of ICE in other places. Again, I think we were as a country, we're so, overwhelmed by what went down in Minneapolis that we kind of like reached our cap on ICE violence and moved on to new things, but it is still going on. That's for sure. All right. Trying to look at what else I wanted to go over. So the third thing that I put as a main story, it's not super new, but it's something that we didn't really talk about here that I think is of general interest. So basically that I saw this, I follow Everytown, which is the nonprofit against gun violence. It's Everytown for gun safety. And I saw something that was talking about how basically in the most American fashion possible, instead of actually trying to solve school shootings and stop school shootings from happening, we've instead had people capitalize off of school shootings by creating, these these gun violence like prevention or safety devices and protocols and programs that they're now selling, to schools, and have it's turned into a $1 billion industry, which is just, it's so American. I can't even really grasp my head around it. So I found an article. There wasn't enough about this, in my opinion, for how disheartening this is. But good old NPR, always really covering the stories that other people aren't. Like I just can't say enough good things about NPR. Alfie, are you tired? And I found an article from September 8th, 2025 about it to link to this information that I saw, this week from the Everytown Instagram. The school shooting industry is worth billions and it keeps growing. This is by Meg Anderson. And let me pull this up into the teleprompter. So crazy. Yeah, this is so American. It's like instead of finding a solution, an all-time solution to the problem, let's create and monetize little band-aids. So this says, on a sunny day in Grapevine, Texas, 3 drones are buzzing around the head of a test dummy balanced on a pedestal. It's part of a demonstration outside the National School Safety Conference. We use drones to stop school shootings, says Justin Marston. Can you imagine people who work at schools using drones? These fucking morons. not teachers, but the administration for sure. The CEO of Campus Guardian Angel, the company selling the drones. In the event of a shooting, remote pilots fly the drones housed at the school at the shooter. Okay. Good plan. They shoot pepper balls and run the drones into the shooter to debilitate them. This is, a lovely plan if someone who knows how to work it. Is doing this and is paying attention. This is like, people, humans who have been sent to stop school shootings aren't even doing a good job. And now we're going to send drones. The technology is one example of a long list of products schools can buy to deter a shooter. There have been more than 400 school shootings since Columbine in 1999, according to an analysis by the Washington Post. The latest was last month when a former student opened fire at a Catholic school in Minneapolis. 2 students were killed and at least 18 other people were wounded. In the wake of those shootings, an industry has emerged to try to protect schools, and business is booming. Oh my gosh. Yeah. According to the market research firm Omdia, the school security industry is now worth as much as $4 billion, and it's projected to keep growing. And so this really reminded me of like Geo Group, right? So it's like we have all these problems in America, and instead of solving them, we're just giving private companies money to create little bandages for them or to run them in a very bad way when it comes to Geo Group. The school safety and security industry has grown rapidly over the past decade, says Ronali Rajan, senior director with the research arm of Everytown for Gun Safety, which advocates for gun control. The challenge right now is that these school safety products, the vast majority, have absolutely no evidence guiding their effectiveness. What's for sale inside the school safety conference? And I kind of want to these things sound so interesting to me because I love a conference and I would love to know what they're trying to sell. Vendors in an expo hall showcase panic buttons, bullet resistant whiteboards, facial recognition technology, training simulators, body armor, guns, and tasers. Tom McDermott with the metal detector manufacturer CEIA USA says schools used to be a small fraction of their US business. Now they're the majority. It's not right. We need to solve this problem. It's good for business, but we don't need to be selling to schools, McDermott says. Sarah McNeely, a sales manager with Sam Medical, is selling trauma kits, which include tourniquets, clotting agents, and chest seals. She says their customers are traditionally EMTs, fire departments, and military medics, but increasingly school districts. Being prepared and having these devices in the schools is essential. She says some people want to put their heads in the sand and pretend like it's not going to happen to them. And in the comment section of Everytown, I was reading some of the comment sections on this when this story was posted, and one mom of a school-aged child commented and said that her little kid, like 6 or something, said that they weren't going to the bathroom during school. And she was like, why aren't you going to the bathroom? Why are you holding in your pee all day? Like, why are you rationing? Like they said they were like trying not to drink a lot of water so they didn't have to pee. She's like, why are you rationing your water? And she's like, well, the bathrooms don't have deadbolts on them. So if you're going to the bathroom and a school shooting happens and we go into lockdown, you just have to stay in the bathroom and you don't get protected because you're not in a room with deadbolts, but you can't go back to your classroom. And they're taught to just stand on top of the toilets. And I guess you would lock the stall and stand on top of the toilet so that the shooter can't see your feet. But I mean, how heartbreaking, how terrifying. The expo hall is just one part of the conference organized by the National Association of School Resource Officers, or NASRO. The group also trains school-based police officers on a variety of topics, including how to work with kids who have experienced trauma and how to intervene before violence occurs. Yeah, and think how well-trained regular police officers are, and then take it down a notch, and that's how well-trained school police officers are. Sarah, I know sometimes schools have an actual real police officer, but my point is the police officer that's being sent to protect the grammar school, I guarantee it isn't the best one on the squad. Sarah Mendoza, a school resource officer in Yoakum, Texas, who attended the conference, says she finds that aspect most meaningful. I just sit there and I talk to them and I listen. She says, of working with students, my connection with the kids is so important because they're the ones who are going to come and tell me, hey, Mendoza, this is what's going on. Can you help us? Or, hey, Mendoza, this is how I'm feeling today. What can I do to make myself better? Mo Kennedy, the executive director of NASRO and a former police officer, says school resource officers are in one of the most challenging policing roles. We're asking a lot of that officer. We're asking them to be the best tactical person their department could offer. Kennedy says we're asking them to be the best informal counselor. Part I agree with. They actually have to have empathy, which is rarely found in police officers. But I don't know that they're. I don't know that they're sending the most tactical person. Notice the part where it says that the department could offer. But when a shooting happens, he says school resource officers need any tools they can get. What works to prevent school shootings? Gun violence experts say simple things like locked doors can make a difference. Authorities say that likely saved many lives last month in Minneapolis, but a locked door doesn't necessarily prevent a shooting. Researchers say investing in school communities that promote a culture of emotional support and trust, as well as robust mental health services, is key to preventing gun violence, as most school shooters are current or former students and are suicidal. And this, on a small scale, is exactly the kind of things that they implemented in Baltimore or in any major city where you see a real downtick. I don't think downtick is a word, but I'm using it as the as the opposite of uptick, where you see a real regression in gun violence. Community outreach, mental health services, improvement in community programs that helps in a major city. So imagine if it's helping with adults in a city setting, how helpful it would be to students in a school setting. Jillian Peterson, who leads the Violence Prevention Project Research Center at Hamline University, has interviewed people who planned a school shooting but didn't carry it out. That's a podcast. She said there are often two key reasons they change their minds. The first is that they had trouble accessing a firearm, which is why she says safe storage laws are crucial. The other is that someone helped a young person find hope while they were in crisis. We're spending billions of dollars that could be going to mental health or counselors, all the stuff that we know creates inclusion, Peterson says. Still, she says she understands the allure of an impenetrable school. I think it preys on people's worst fears, she says. How do you say no to something if you're telling me it might save my kid's life? Yeah, fear-mongering to capitalize monetarily. The American way. Of course I want that thing. She said trying to buy safety feels very American, just like school shootings. So that's the piece. And again, I just think this is a really fascinating story. It's talked about in the documentary Thoughts and Prayers. I believe I haven't had the time to watch that yet. Or maybe I started watching it and then I was like, this is too sad for right now. I don't know. I take in a lot of documentary stuff, but I do still want to sit down and watch it. So that was one piece. Yeah, Mike, you have a thing?
Yeah. So, a couple of things. One, I've been to, I tried to do a show, before a police, showing off the new kind of weapons conference. You know what I mean?
Of course you did.
Right. You try to game plan around some things. It was a colossal failure and I lost money on it. But I did get to see firsthand what it is. And it's essentially, it's just an excuse for these guys to get like a day off of work and get away from their families for a night at an open bar by provided by Smith & Wesson or whoever it was. Like one of the major suppliers was
for anti-school shooting stuff.
No, not necessarily. This was for, the latest taser on the market or the latest whatever. But it's like ultimately,
right?
You're still just selling to law enforcement people,
right?
So it's like that's all it is like it's just a big open bar paid for by these gun manufacturers. And the thing I wanted to ask you about is your mom was an educator, correct?
Correct. Yeah, she just retired last year.
So I just heard from a friend that they were doing like he's a teacher in New Jersey, and he said that like in addition to fire drills, they would do active shooter
Oh
drills.
God, yeah, that's been going on for a while.
Is that for real?
Yo, yes. Yeah, you do
Oh,
you do lockdown. It's the same as like when our parents were in school. I'm guessing our parents were the same age. Or my mom at least would do the like the nuclear,
yeah. But you're
bomb, the hide under your desk or whatever drill. Yeah, yeah, lockdown drills. 100% they were doing. My mom was doing
whoa.
those.
That's
Yeah.
nuts. That's so it's like that also needs to be a like there definitely is some kind of industry popping up around that to be like, hey, we got to mandate these, and this inspector has to come through and see how you do, and like there's a consulting fee there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's like there's money coming and going on this.
Oh, absolutely. And like again, this is from April 15th of 2025, but on Everytown. But if you want to just again, I was just trying to piece together the most detailed information I could find because I thought this was really worth talking about and shedding some more light on. And nonprofits like usually have blogs and their own articles and stuff, and they are really interesting. I'm always on like nonprofit sites reading kind of their internal reports and stuff. And it says mass shootings, major tax breaks for gun companies who got big incentives to bring their killer business to a new state. It says gun violence costs the United States $557.2 billion each year, of which 12.6 billion is paid by taxpayers, which again is very interesting, because obviously we don't care about human lives even when they're children, but that's an interesting point that I don't see brought up a lot, that gun violence actually costs taxpayers an exorbitant amount of money. That's really interesting. Amid conversations about government efficiency and promises of a balanced budget, one would think that protecting policies that prevent gun violence would be the place where the Trump-Vance administration would start cutting some costs. One would be wrong. Despite violent crime dropping to a near 50-year low in the wake of bipartisan progress on gun safety, the Trump-Vance administration is blowing up the very laws that keep law enforcement and our communities safe from gun violence. Policies that implement laws that have been on the books for decades and enforced by Republican and Democratic presidents alike are being rolled back. Repealing a life-saving policy that shuttered dangerous gun dealers, chipping away at other common sense safety regulations, and advancing a pro-gun agenda comes at a cost to public safety. As the following examples show, the gun industry can almost always find a way to profit while people across the United States die and taxpayers, communities, and our country pay the price. I'm not going to read all, I'm just going to try to like read the highlighted parts of these because I don't, we're not going to go detail on each company, but I think it's, important. So Beretta, Tennessee. In 2014, Beretta announced plans to relocate its U.S. operations from Maryland to Tennessee. Tennessee and the town of Gallatin offered Beretta $4 million in incentives, including 100 free acres of land worth $1.75 million and a 10-year tax abatement worth about $2.2 million. So Beretta is it's the company. I never heard of them, but Beretta is a company, and they're located out of Tennessee. And then Daniel Defense out of South Carolina and Georgia. In 2011, Daniel Defense expended. Yeah, yes, Mike.
You've never heard the term Beretta?
No. What does
That's
that mean?
like one of the most common handguns. Like rappers talk about it all the time.
You know what? That's why I haven't heard about it.
All right, fair.
Maybe I would have heard about it if they didn't talk about being rude to women and not letting us have autonomy over our bodies. Maybe I'd be more well educated on gun violence through rap. Daniel Defense, South Carolina and Georgia in 2011, or maybe I heard it and I just didn't know that's how it was pronounced because in a rap it sounds different. In 2011, Daniel Defense expanded its manufacturing to Jasper County, South Carolina. The state in return gave Daniel Defense reimbursements for training its workers, a grant, and tax credits. The company, which was founded in 2000, had also previously received 2 federal loans that totaled over $2.7 million. Like, I mean, is this not pissing you the fuck off? Remington Outdoor Company, I know them, out of Alabama. On September 16th, 2013, a gunman used a Remington Model 870 Express tactical pump-action shotgun during a mass shooting at Washington Navy Yard in Washington, D.C., in which 12 people were killed and 3 people were wounded. Less than 6 months later, Remington announced its plans to open a new production facility in Huntsville, Alabama. Then CEO George Colitudes, attributed the expansion in part to what he said was a demand for our products at a historic high. At the time, Remington said it would invest $110.9 million and create 2,000 jobs. The jobs is always how they sell people on it. In return, the city and state offered the company $38 million in cash, as well as tax breaks and assistance in workforce recruitment and training valued at $66 million. This is especially pisses me off in states like, Alabama, where the education numbers are so bad that this is what your fucking government's doing with your money. Sturm Ruger and Co. out of North Carolina in July 2013. Sturm Ruger and Co. announced that it planned to open a gun manufacturing plant in Mayodan, North Carolina. The Associated Press reported that while Ruger publicly said that it wanted to open a factory in North Carolina, the company kept alive enough doubt that state officials raised their offer of tax breaks and other sweeteners 3 times. The report suggests Ruger used the area's 9% unemployment rate as leverage. Those jobs, I told you, that's how they get you. In the end, per Associated Press, North Carolina and the local government gave Ruger a tax and incentives package valued at $15.5 million contingent on Ruger meeting investment and hiring goals. Well, I mean, I hope they met these actual hiring goals. Like, is it even said? Well, this is a fun update. In 2021, just over a year later, years later, I gotta read the end of this. Years later, during a company earnings call in February 2020, Ruger's then CEO said, in Mayodan, North Carolina, we reached the employment threshold needed to lock in our state incentives for years to come, while delivering awesome new products such as the AR-556 pistol. In 2021, just over a year later, the Ruger AR-556 was used in at least 2 deadly mass shootings. In March, a gunman used a Ruger AR-556 pistol to kill 10 people at a King Soopers supermarket in Boulder, Colorado. I remember that one. Less than 1 month after that, 8 people were killed and 4 people were wounded during a shooting that also involved a Ruger AR-556 rifle at a FedEx ground facility in Indianapolis, Indiana. All right, so that's just a little rundown. Again, I know we talk about school shootings a lot as a country, but again, I feel like we kind of become immune to them because it's something that happens just so much. Wrapping up, I just want... Oh my gosh, Alfred. Sorry, another dog barked outside. Alfred's flipping out now. Obviously, we got to highlight before we go, as part of Girl, that there is a new intelligence chief for our good friend Trumpers. There is... Hey, buddy. It's okay. Let me grab my dog 1 second. Putty, it's okay, sweetheart. You got scared? Yeah. You got scared. How about you sit with mommy because you got scared? Okay. It's okay. I know sometimes sounds can be scary. Okay. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry that you got scared. All right. This is from The Atlantic, and this says one reason Trump might have chosen his new intelligence chief. Bill Pulte. Is that the way you pronounce it, or is it Pulte? I haven't heard anyone say it out loud. Do you know, Mike?
I believe it's Pulte.
Okay, Bill Pulte, that means it's Pulte. No, I'm kidding. Bill Pulte has no national security experience, but he does have one qualification that might appeal to the president. This is by David A. Graham for The Atlantic. There are 2 reasonable reactions to the news that Bill Pulte has been named acting director of national intelligence. Who and him? Pulte, the current head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, will replace Tulsi Gabbard, who announced her departure last month after an unhappy and unempowered spell as the DNI. Pulte is taking the post on an interim basis, becoming the latest administration official to do multiple jobs. In some cases, such as Marco Rubio's dual roles as Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, obvious connections exist between the jobs. In others, such as Rubio's stint as the National Archivist, they do not. Pulte is in the latter camp. Knowing how long he might be in the job is impossible. Donald Trump has, in the past, shown little eagerness to fill roles. Let's see. Sorry, I just moved this 1 second. I moved it up. Okay. Okay, here. He prefers to have loyalists on hand, and he might struggle to find anyone qualified who is willing to serve. Besides, the Senate, which has already been slow to confirm some appointees, is currently gummed up on other business. 3 things about Pulte are important to know. First, he has no apparent intelligent experience. Second, he is being assigned to fill an important government coordination position, but his brief track record shows that he has a tendency to clash with and infuriate colleagues rather than work with them. Third, the most notable thing that Pulte does bring to the role is a demonstrated history of using sensitive government data for political retribution. Enter Trump, enter Spencer Pratt, the gang's all here. The law that established the DNI states that any individual nominated for appointment as Director of National Intelligence shall have extensive national security expertise. When Trump appointed Gabbard, a former Democratic member of Congress who endorsed him in 2024, she became by far the least qualified person to ever hold the job. Pulte somehow has fewer qualifications. Gabbard was at least a member of Congress. On the plus side, he's never been accused of lying about conversations with foreign dictators or being a Russian asset, unlike her. Trump's announcement of Pulte's assignment conspicuously did not cite any relevant work, and the New York Times delicately notes that Pulte has no known experience for a national security role, end quote. Some intelligence work is necessarily secret, but given that Pulte is just 38 years old and has a well-documented work history, past clandestine work seems unlikely. Trump may see a bit of himself in Pulte, the young scion of a real estate family. The Pultes are major home builders who has boundless confidence in his own abilities. That approach has not been working well for Trump recently. This shallow experience is particularly concerning given the reason the job exists. The DNI was created as part of post 9/11 reforms to the intelligence community. Inquiries, including the work of the 9/11 Commission, found that intelligence agencies not sharing information with one another had contributed to the failure to prevent the attacks. The DNI was designed to sit atop all of the agencies, including the CIA and the NSA, and ensure their coordination, although critics of the current structure have argued that it needs more power. If the goal is for top officials to work together, Pulte is not a promising person to make that happen. One of the most notable incidents involving Pulte during this administration was when Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent heard that Pulte was bad-mouthing him to Trump and tried to fight Pulte. Why the fuck are you talking to the president about me? Fuck you, Bessent said, according to Politico. Even cooler-headed intelligence officials may not be enthused about taking direction from a young, unqualified political appointee. The one area in which Pulte has shown actual skill is the use of government information to launch retribution campaigns against Trump's political enemies. Using agency data, Pulte launched mortgage fraud investigations into Senator Adam Schiff of California and our friend New York Attorney General Letitia James, both Democrats, and Lisa Cook, a member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. James was charged, but a judge threw out the case because she found that the acting U.S. attorney involved had not been lawfully appointed, and a grand jury declined to bring new charges. Cook accused Pulte of cherry-picking data. After Trump fired her, she sued, and the Supreme Court has not issued a final ruling, but lower courts ruled against Trump. Schiff denied wrongdoing and has not been charged. Cook remains on the board. Reuters reported that 2 members of Pulte's family have filed housing claims similar to the ones for which he investigated Cook. Last year, the Government Accountability Office opened an investigation into whether Pulte had improperly used mortgage data, and top Fannie Mae officials were fired after they complained that a Pulte aide had improperly shared data from the federal housing lender with a competitor. The efforts to investigate Schiff, James, and Cook are all troubling, and more so if federal data were used improperly. So far, these efforts seem to have mostly come up short, either for lack of evidence or for other procedural failures by the Trump administration. But as the DNI, Pulte would have much greater access to sensitive data, creating the opportunity for far greater abuses than anything alleged during his time at the Federal Housing Finance Agency. And he could pursue Trump's revenge against anyone involved in investigating his ties to Russia. It's hard not to suspect that that's the reason Trump has chosen someone otherwise so unqualified for the job. Yeah, I mean, at this point in the game, he's hiring friends and he's hiring people who will do what he wants to do, which is absolutely seek retribution and retaliation on everyone who's ever done him wrong in his entire life, which normally would, I'd say, that's very much my speed, but not when you're the president, not when you're an elected official. That's for like when you're a stand-up comedian in New York City. That's what you do that for. That's what you save that fun for.
His personal attorney is the Attorney General of the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
Like the same guy who was being like, who was on the phone with being like, yo, find me some ballots. That guy is now in charge of the whole justice system in America. That's kind of wild.
Yeah.
Like it was
Don't dream it, be it.
It was acting. It was interim for a little bit. Everyone who I listened to who was like, still thinks they're a rational Trump supporter was like, yeah, he'll leave him in there for a couple of weeks while he finds someone. That was 4 months ago.
Yep. Uh-huh. I'm so curious how things are going to end with this presidency. On the edge of my seat, really. All right. And we're going to round out the show today with an article that, file under women's issues, file under could be worse. But again, this is our kind of international story for the day. It's a downer, sorry. But I thought, in my women sexual assault algorithm, I really wanted to cover this because I know people, at least in the UK, are really, really upset about this, as they should be. So I wanted to share it with my audience here. I know you guys are American, Canadian, British, Irish, Australian. Thanks for listening. This last story is from the BBC. It's by Olivia Ireland, and it says Attorney General had no doubt on reviewing teen boys' rape sentences. Attorney General Lord Hermer said he had no doubt about referring the case of teenage boys who raped 2 girls to the Court of Appeal after they were spared jail time. The decision to hand non-custodial sentences to the 3 boys sparked backlash, with one girl telling the BBC hearing the sentence was like, quote, a rock in my face. 2 girls, then aged 15 and 14, were raped in separate incidents in Fordingbridge, Hampshire in November 2024 and January 2025 by 2 14-year-olds. Another boy, then 13, was also convicted for his involvement in the second attack. I was in no doubt that it was a sentence that I felt had to be referred to the Court of Appeal, Lord Hermer told BBC Radio 4's Political Thinking with Nick Robinson podcast. Judge Nicholas Rowland said he had given the boys youth rehabilitation orders rather than jail time because he wanted to avoid criminalizing the, quote, very young boys and support their reintegration into society. He praised them for their behavior during the trial. And let me just stop here to say, number one, not surprised at all. This is something that we hear from judges and in court a lot. And again, when we talk about how bad the American justice system is, reminder, stuff like this happens in the UK, stuff like this happens in Canada. It is not just the US. And this kind of like narcissistic, like I'm a leftist who hates America, I think is completely unhelpful. It's almost like nationalist because you're minimizing the other experiences that other countries are going through that they could use assistance with, and making it seem like, America's the best at being the worst. And while in some ways that might be so, I think if we tackled it as an international issue and we all work together on it, we get a lot more movement on these issues. All right. So it's also crazy to me that Sorry, I don't know. I just choked myself. It's crazy to me that a judge is saying like, you know, you're like he knows that these people are old enough to rape. They're old enough to rape, but they're still young enough that I'm praising them for things like their behavior during the trial. They're young enough that I don't want to criminalize them for the rest of their lives, but they're old enough to rape. If you know how to rape, you're old enough to do jail time. Can we put that on a t-shirt or something? And this was just something that we talk about so long. Like, these girls will live with the effects of this rape for the rest of their lives, right? And so, like, you're not like they weren't too young to be raped, but I mean I could talk about this all day. It's really fucking infuriating how many times we see the same court case over and over and over again with different players. The boys, who cannot be named because they are children, had denied the charges but were found guilty in March after a trial at Southampton Crown Court. The Sentencing Council for England and Wales states even in very serious cases, courts should prioritize rehabilitation for children and use custody as a last resort. I don't agree with that. But of course and this is coming from me. You guys know I'm like the fucking queen of rehabilitation and reintegration into society. You know, the right would say to a fault. I am big into this. I think people should go to jail, and part of the reason that they should be in jail and not be sent, to the death penalty is because the hope is that they can be reintegrated into society one day. And I don't think they should be sitting in solitary confinement. And I think that they should be able to get tools and education and learn skills and really, if they are one day released, come out and be a contributing member to society. I think that is so important. I'm such a big fan and proponent of that. But this is so fucking fucked. The sentencing, the second girl told BBC Newsnight earlier this week she wanted to be able to go on a walk without being scared. As her father said, the attack caused a lifelong impact on his daughter. Lord Hermer said after hearing of the initial sentence for the boys, he wanted to know the detail as quickly as possible so I could make a decision as quickly as possible, so uncertainty was not hanging over the two girls. As part, there's certainty that the two girls have right now that they're going to be treated differently and like second class citizens because they are girls, because they dared to go out and get raped. You fucking morons.
Not only that, it was uploaded online.
Oh, right. Yes.
They will be looked at differently by their peers because a lot of their peers has seen them engaged in sexual conduct that they was completely unwanted, was not asked for in the first place, and that's since been disseminated by the boys who again are not being criminalized.
Right, and that's why it was just so calculated. It was so calculated, and that thank you for adding that, because that's the initial Instagram video that led me to looking up an actual news article on this case did mention that, and that's why it's like there's no argument here. There's no he said she said. Like there's no way to say like like we all were 14 and got drunk at a party or something. And like, this was, saying one person saying it was consensual. We fucking uploaded this. We uploaded this to the internet. Thank you. As if I wasn't pissed off enough already. Thanks, girl dad. As part of my consideration of the case, I read the victim statements. Lord Hermer said, praising the bravery of those girls for putting themselves through the ordeal of a trial. But what is more, when they got those sentences, to carry on campaigning to secure justice. The Attorney General acts as the chief legal advisor to the government and the Crown, as well as overseeing the law officers' departments. Under the unduly lenient sentence (ULS) scheme, a member of the public can go to a government webpage and ask the Attorney General to look at the outcome. If the Attorney General and expert lawyers agree that a sentence is out of line with normal expectations for such a crime, they can send the case to the Court of Appeal, which is really cool. There, 3 of the most senior judges in England and Wales will hear arguments about whether the sentence was too short or appropriate, taking into account detailed guidelines to trial judges and the specific circumstances of the case. Lord Hermer said courts across the country sentence people to very long periods in prison for sexual offenses. We are determined to make sure that the criminal justice system works for victims. Jess Phillips, a former minister for safeguarding and violence against women, said sentencing guidelines do not take into account a growing trend of children sexually abusing other children. Referencing the findings of the Southport inquiry, she said it outlines that we focus too heavily on the perpetrator and their vulnerabilities and don't think about the public safety element. She told BBC Radio 4's Today program on Saturday that the girls in the Fording Bridge case have essentially been asked to suck it up for the sake of the perception of what is best for the perpetrators. Again, this is so fucking common with specifically when minor males rape minor females. I have read fucking 100 cases like this at this point. Asked what has contributed to the rise in young people committing sexual abuse, she said, I cannot ignore the growth in online pornography, access to the most heinous things online for this generation that just simply didn't exist in prior generations. Well, and also the uptick in content that is, reinforcing this this narrative that women's bodies must be taken. I mean, even when we talk about like, the sexual kink, and I'm putting it in quotes because I am fucking sex positive, but this one pisses me off, fair use. Look it up, fair use porn. I mean, look it up on like a private browser or something, not at work. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch previously posted on X that the three boys received no punishment at all. Reform UK's Treasury spokesman Robert Jenrick also previously condemned the sentence, telling the BBC it can never be right that a young person kills someone or rapes someone and they do not go to jail. And so basically this is going to get looked at again because the public outcry was fierce after this verdict came in, and as it should have been. That's our show, Mike, unless you have anything else to say about anything. Obviously we'll do promos and everything, but anything else based on the news articles that we shared.
No, I mean, that's just I'm very upset with England.
I love that. I'm very upset with England.
No, I mean, I've been I was telling you like horror stories about like, the quote unquote groomer gangs that have been, going around in England for a while. The situations where like dads show up to a trap house where their daughter is currently inside being raped and the police will threaten to arrest them if they do not leave these young men alone. And it's like, I don't know, it feels like you're living in upside down world. And then you see a situation like this where it's like, all of the facts have been presented in front of a judge, and this happens. There was the other one that the kid who got stabbed 5 times, the cops put handcuffs on him as he's saying like, I've been stabbed, and just put cuffs on him while he bled out. And the guys who stabbed him only got 21 years in jail because religious exemption. Muslims are allowed to have like a dagger because of their religious affiliation. So there was no premeditation on the fact that this guy,
what?
This is
for
a real
what?
thing.
Wait.
So it's not that he's allowed to use it violently, but the fact that he would possibly have it on him for religious purposes made it so that they could argue he didn't leave his house that day with intent to stab someone to death. So he got a lighter sentence because of it. This is the verdict came out like 2 days ago or something.
Okay, so this is for Sikhs specifically. Some countries, such as the UK, this is from The Guardian, provide specific legal exemptions for members of the Sikh religion to carry a ceremonial dagger called a kirpan, as it is an article of faith. This is a specific religious exemption for the Sikh faith and generally does not extend to other religions. I'm sorry, if your religion involves carrying a dagger, you can't. You can't. That's crazy. Come on.
Kind of nuts, right?
I'm gonna start a religion and be like, in my religion, women can carry guns.
Yeah, women all need to have AK-47s if they're leaving their house. Like, just like your religion says they have to have burqas, mine says they have to have assault rifles.
This thing is crazy looking too. It's like curved and shit. That would hurt so much if it went into you. The kirpan
5 times, and then the cops put the cuffs on him. Dog, England's fucking up.
But this is a difficult conversation because when things have religious coverage, you talk about something like this, you're going to get labeled an Islamophobe immediately. But this goes for if they told Catholics, if they told Jews that no one should be carrying a dagger if daggers aren't allowed in the place where you are. Either everyone has a dagger or nobody has a dagger. That's not fair. The kirpan is a blade that Khalsa Sikhs are required to wear as part of their religious uniform, as prescribed by the Sikh Code of Conduct. Traditionally, the kirpan was a full-size talwar at around 30 inches. However, British colonial policies and laws introduced in the 19th century reduced the law of the blade. So the law has already adjusted the length of the blade, to differentiate it from the original Sikh Code of Conduct. So that just shows the law can change it again and say, actually, no daggers. According to the Sikh Code of Conduct, the length of the sword to be worn is not prescribed. Interesting, they've added that in, but must be curved and single-edged. So it should be mini. Maybe it can be like dollhouse version, as its minis are very in right now, as its original sword form was, and worn over the right shoulder and across the body. Why can't you just like make a mini one like a necklace? Like if it's just like supposed to represent something, why don't we just have it as like a little mini necklace? It is part of a religious commandment given by Guru Gobind Singh in 1699, founding the Khalsa order and introducing the 5 articles of faith, which must be worn at all times. Seems like this could be a charm necklace. I know that's probably disrespectful, but I'm just thinking, like, if I'm having 5 things like that, why can't they be many if they're just representative? Wow. Okay. Well, Alfred's here. I mean, Alfred, you have such good timing. Let's do an outro for everybody. Say go Knicks. Say thank you so much for supporting my mommy. I appreciate you guys so much. Reminder to save the date, October 25th. It's a Sunday at the Comedy Store for Gash in Los Angeles. And make sure you're following me on social media. If you like this show and you don't listen to Guys We Fucked, that's the other show that I do, women's issues, dating advice. It's a little lighter than this. A lot lighter, I would say, actually, but fun and informative, I think. We still talk about serious stuff a lot and have really good, interesting guests that are working in feminism and women's rights. And we have a lot of great interviews in the can coming up. Follow me on social media at Philanthropy Gal. I also have a Corinne Fisher comedy Instagram that's only for stand-up if you want to follow that. And of course, Without a Country podcast has an Instagram. And most importantly, please make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel Without a Country. And again, if you want to do a little extra, get a little extra, it's patreon.com/Without a Country. You're so cute, Alfie. And Mike, where can people find you and support all the great stuff that you're doing?
I am available on Instagram and Twitter, or X, at the M Harrington, also on Threads under the same handle. And then I got the Armored League coming up. That is tomorrow. So if you're watching this live, I think there's still like maybe a handful of tickets left, but we're going to be doing events pretty much every at least once a month through the end of the year. So check us out at thearmoredleague.com.
Amazing, guys. Thank you so much for listening, for voting, for thinking, for talking about this stuff with your friends, and for using your critical thinking and comprehension skills. If you want to send me anything, it's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. Until then, go Knicks and peace. Bye.
Running from the man, yeah, the madman's coming, yeah, the man's gunning for me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive.